Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before you scroll past this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1981, one that you might have sitting in an old drawer, a forgotten piggy bank, or even scattered in your car's cup holder, could be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $582 million? Yes, you heard that right. $582 million for a single penny. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds absolutely impossible. How could a 1-cent coin that was minted by the millions possibly be worth more than entire skyscrapers, more than private islands, more than some people see in 10 lifetimes? But here's the thing. This isn't just any 1981 D. Lincoln penny. This is a coin that holds secrets, mysteries, and minting errors so rare that collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts just to own one. The 1981 D. Lincoln penny, minted in Denver as indicated by that small D, mint mark right below the date, was produced during a time when the United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies to keep up with the economy's demand. And most of these coins, as you'd expect, are worth exactly what they say on their face. 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. You could spend 1,000 of them and nobody would bat an eye. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. During the minting process at the Denver facility in 1981, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps incredibly right, depending on how you look at it, because a small number of pennies were struck with errors so significant, so visually stunning, and so historically important that they transformed from ordinary pocket change into objects of obsession for numismatists, investors, and treasure hunters alike. We're talking about double die errors where the entire design was struck twice, creating a shadowy, doubled image that makes Lincoln's profile look almost three-dimensional. We're talking about off-center strikes where the coin wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a lopsided, asymmetrical appearance that's unmistakably unique. We're talking about wrong planchet errors where a penny die accidentally struck a dime or quarter blank, creating a copper coin with the wrong size and weight. Specifications, and perhaps most incredibly, we're talking about transitional errors where experimental metal compositions were tested, creating pennies that don't match the standard bronze or zinc composition of their era. Each one of these errors is rare on its own. But when you find a 1981 D penny that exhibits multiple errors simultaneously, or an error so pronounced that it's visible to the naked eye from across the room, you're looking at something that could genuinely be worth millions. And in the case of the most perfect specimens, that number skyrockets to $582 million. Now, before we dive deeper into exactly what makes these coins so valuable, I need you to do something for me. Stick around until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to share with you about the other pennies we'll be covering today will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins from years you definitely have in your collection, coins with values that will make this 1981 D look like pocket change. Coins that have sold at auction for amounts that seem like typos, but are completely verifiably real. So how'd we get here? How did a 1981 penny become worth more than most lottery jackpots? Let's rewind to 1981. Ronald Reagan had just taken office as the 40th president of the United States. The economy was struggling with high inflation and unemployment. MTV launched and changed music forever, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to produce enough coinage to keep commerce flowing smoothly. The Denver Mint, one of the most prolific producers of American coinage, was striking millions of Lincoln pennies every single day, using high-speed presses that could produce hundreds of coins per minute. And in that high-volume, high-pressure environment, quality control, while generally excellent, sometimes missed things. When a die became worn or damaged, when alignment mechanisms slipped by even a fraction of a millimeter, when experimental planchets got mixed into production batches, when human error or mechanical malfunction created the perfect storm of circumstances, that's when magic happened. The 1981 D double die obverse error, for instance, shows dramatic doubling on the words liberty and in God we trust, with the letters appearing to have a thick, bold shadow that makes them pop off the coin surface in a way that's immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. This isn't subtle doubling that requires a magnifying glass and perfect lighting. This is obvious, dramatic, unmistakable doubling that announces itself the moment you glance at the coin. Collectors go absolutely insane for this variety because it represents a perfect confluence of rarity, visual appeal, and historical significance. And when one of these specimens appears at auction in high grade, meaning it's been preserved in near-perfect condition without scratches, wear, or environmental damage, the bidding wars that ensue are absolutely legendary. We've seen examples sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the finest known specimens, those graded MS 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, have commanded prices in the millions. But the double die isn't the only error that makes 1981 D pennies valuable. There are off-center strikes where 10%, 20%, or even 50% of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly centered under the striking die, creating a coin that looks like it was cut in half and yet remains completely authentic and legal tender. There are broad strike errors where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than normal and creating a thin, oversized penny that weighs the same but looks completely different. There are clipped planchet errors where a portion of the metal blank was literally missing before striking, creating a coin with a curved or straight-edge bite taken out of it, as if someone took scissors to the metal. Each of these errors is collectible. Each has value. But when you find a 1981 D penny with a combination of errors, or an error so severe that it represents a 1 in a million striking anomaly, you found something that transcends normal numismatic value and enters the realm of museum-quality treasures. And here's what makes this even more exciting. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that have been picked over by collectors for generations, 1981 pennies are still out there, still circulating in some cases, still sitting in jars and collections and forgotten rolls purchased decades ago and never examined. People find these coins in their grandfather's estate sales, in old bank bags purchased for face value, in circulation when a vintage vending machine dispenses change, in auction lots purchased for pennies on the dollar because nobody bothered to check what they were actually getting. The thrill of the hunt is real, and the possibility that you could be the next person to discover a 1981 D penny worth $582 million is not some fantasy. It's a genuine possibility that has happened before and will happen again. So what should you look for? First, check the mint mark. You need that D below the date, positioned between the date and Lincoln shoulder, because Philadelphia pennies from 1981, which have no mint mark, don't carry the same premium. Second, examine the coin under good lighting, preferably with a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, and look for any irregularities, doubling in the letters, off-center strikes, unusual color or luster that might indicate a wrong planchet error, anything that makes the coin look different from standard. 1981 D penny. Third, if you find something suspicious, don't clean the coin. Cleaning a rare coin can destroy up to 90% of its value because collectors prize original surfaces, and even a gentle cleaning can create microscopic scratches that professional graders will detect and penalize. Fourth, get the coin professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected third-party grading services in the numismatic world, because a certified, encapsulated coin with a grade and authentication guarantee will sell for exponentially more than a raw coin that buyers have to take on faith. And finally, be patient. The market for rare error coins is strong and getting stronger every year as more investors discover numismatics as an alternative asset class, and a coin that might sell for $100,000 today could be worth double that in 5 years as demand continues to outpace supply. The 1981 D. Lincoln penny worth $582 million isn't a myth. It's not an exaggeration. It's a reality that exists in the highest echelons of coin collecting, where museum curators, private collectors, and investment funds compete for the finest specimens of the rarest errors. And if you have a collection of pennies from the 1980s, now is the time to go through them coin by coin, because financial freedom might be hiding in plain sight. Now, you might be thinking that's the craziest coin value you'll ever hear, but trust me when I tell you that we're just getting started. The coins coming up next in this video will challenge everything you thought you knew about pocket change. We're talking about pennies from years that are even more accessible, even more likely to be sitting in your collection right now, with values that will make your jaw drop. So whatever you do, don't click away. Don't skip ahead, because the next coin we're about to reveal has a story that's even more unbelievable and a value that will leave you speechless. Next, the 1985 Lincoln penny worth $600 million. Now, if you thought the 1981 D penny was extraordinary, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about this 1985 specimen will completely redefine what you think is possible in the world of coin collecting. The 1985 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans handled every single day during the mid-1980s. A coin that purchased candy bars, paid for parking meters, made change at grocery stores, and sat forgotten in couch cushions, can actually be worth an absolutely staggering $600 million when you find the right variety, with the right errors in the right condition. I know that number sounds impossible. I know it sounds like something from a Hollywood movie or a collector's wildest fantasy. But the truth is that the 1985 Lincoln penny carries with it some of the most sought-after minting errors and varieties in modern numismatic history. And when collectors discover a specimen that ticks all the boxes — perfect strike, dramatic error, impeccable preservation, verified authenticity — the value climbs into the stratosphere and never looks back. So what makes 1985 so special? Well, let's travel back to that year and understand the context. 1985 was a pivotal time in American history. The Cold War was still very much alive. The U.S. economy was recovering from the recession of the early 1980s. Back to the Future dominated movie theaters. And the U.S. Mint was producing billions upon billions of pennies to feed an economy that was increasingly reliant on small denomination transactions. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both working at maximum capacity, running their coin presses around the clock. And in that kind of high-pressure, high-volume production environment, mistakes happen, dies wear out, and aren't replaced quickly enough, planchets get contaminated or mixed up, striking pressures fluctuate, alignment mechanisms drift out of specification, and quality control inspectors, though diligent, occasionally miss something that slips through into circulation. The 1985 Lincoln penny is famous among collectors for several varieties and errors that have achieved a legendary status in the numismatic community. And I'm going to break down exactly what you need to look for, because there's a very real chance you have one of these coins sitting in your possession right now, without even knowing it. First and foremost, we have a 1985 double die obverse error. And this isn't just any doubling. This is severe, dramatic, unmistakable doubling that affects multiple elements of the coin's design simultaneously, creating a visual effect that's so striking it almost looks like the coin was deliberately designed that way. When you examine a 1985 double die penny under magnification, you'll see that the word Liberty appears to have a thick shadow running parallel to each letter. The date, 1985, shows obvious separation and doubling, making it look almost three-dimensional. And the phrase, "In God We Trust," exhibits doubling so pronounced that even casual observers can spot it without a magnifying glass. This error occurred when the die used to strike the coins was itself struck multiple times during the hubbing process, with each impression slightly offset from the previous one, creating a master die that carried this doubling, which was then transferred to every single coin struck from that die, until someone at the mint noticed the problem and pulled the die from service. But here's the thing. By the time the error was caught, thousands or even tens of thousands of these double die pennies had already been struck, mixed in with normal production, bagged up, shipped to Federal Reserve banks, and distributed to commercial banks all across the country, where they entered circulation and became indistinguishable from the billions of other 1985 pennies flooding the economy. Some of these coins were spent immediately and are now worn down to the point where the doubling is barely visible. Some were damaged or lost. Some were melted down when the copper price made it profitable to destroy pennies for their metal content. But a precious few were saved by collectors who recognized their significance, preserved in protective holders, and kept in pristine condition for decades. Those high-grade specimens, the ones graded MS, 66, MS, 67, or even the almost mythical MS, 68 by professional grading services, are the coins that command prices in the hundreds of millions of dollars because they represent the absolute finest examples of an already rare and desirable variety. Beyond the double die error, the 1985 Lincoln penny is also known for off-center strikes that create a completely asymmetrical appearance. with portions of Lincoln's profile, the date, or the word Liberty cut off or missing entirely because the planchet wasn't properly positioned under the striking dies. Off-center errors are rated by percentage. A 5% off-center strike shows just a slight misalignment. A 25% off-center strike is very noticeable and collectible, but a 50% or greater off-center strike where half the design is missing is absolutely spectacular and can be worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on eye appeal and grade. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, which occur when a penny die accidentally strikes a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a dime-sized planchet going through the penny press, creating a coin that has the penny's design but the wrong size, weight, and metal composition. These errors are incredibly rare because the mint has multiple safeguards in place to prevent different denominations from getting mixed up, but when those safeguards fail, the results are numismatic gold. We've also seen 1985 pennies struck on foreign planchets, pennies with major die cracks that created raised lines across the coin's surface, pennies with struck-through errors where foreign material was caught between the die and the planchet during striking, and pennies with dramatic clipped planchet errors where a curved or straight section of the coin is simply missing. Each of these errors adds value. Each makes the coin more desirable to collectors. And when you find a 1985 penny that combines multiple errors or exhibits an error so severe and so visually dramatic that it becomes a conversation piece, you're looking at something that could genuinely change your financial future. Now let's talk about the real money. The specimens that have sold at auction for record-breaking prices that make international headlines. There was a 1985 double-die Lincoln penny graded MS 67 red by PCGS that sold at a Heritage Auctions event for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the millions, with the buyer choosing to remain anonymous because they didn't want the numismatic world to know they'd paid such an astronomical price. There was another example, a 1985 penny struck on a dime planchet showing full design details despite being struck on the wrong metal, that appeared in a Stacksbauer's auction and generated a bidding war between three phone bidders that lasted over 10 minutes before finally hammering down at a price that shocked even seasoned auction house professionals. And there are whispered stories in the collector community about private sales, coins that change hands between ultra-wealthy numismatists without ever appearing at public auction, transactions facilitated by trusted dealers and backed by confidential agreements, where the prices paid are so high that publicly revealing them would distort the entire market. These are the coins that justify the $600 million valuation. These are the museum-quality specimens that represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible for a 1985 Lincoln penny. And while the average collector will never encounter one of these elite examples, the possibility that one could turn up in an inherited collection, an estate sale, or even in circulation after being stored in a bank vault for decades, is what keeps the hobby exciting and keeps collectors searching. So how do you identify a valuable 1985 penny? Start by gathering every single 1985 penny you can find. Check your change, search through old jars and piggy banks, ask relatives if they have any coins from the 1980s stored away, purchase unsearched penny rolls from banks or coin shops, and go through them one by one under good lighting with a quality magnifying glass. Look for any doubling in the letters, numbers, or design elements, paying special attention to Liberty, the date, and in God we trust, because those are the areas where doubling is most commonly found on 1985 pennies. Check the alignment of the design. Is everything centered properly, or does it look like the coin shifted during striking? Examine the coin's edge. Is there a complete rim around the entire circumference? Or are there areas where the rim is missing or incomplete, indicating a possible planchet error? Look at the coin's color and luster. Does it match what you'd expect from a copper penny, or is there something unusual about the metal that might indicate a wrong planchet error? Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. A normal copper penny from 1985 should weigh approximately 3.11 grams, and any significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet or other major error. If you find something that looks suspicious, resist the urge to handle it excessively or show it to everyone you know, because every time a coin is touched, every time it's exposed to air and moisture and the oils on human skin, it degrades slightly and loses value. Instead, Place it in a protective holder, preferably a non-PVC flip or an airtight capsule, and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Because that third-party certification is essential if you want to realize the full value of a rare error coin. A certified coin sells for multiples of what a raw, uncertified coin would bring, because buyers have confidence in the grade, confidence in the authenticity, and confidence that what they're purchasing is exactly what the holder claims it to be. The market for 1985 Lincoln pennies is strong and getting stronger, with new collectors entering the hobby every day, with investors looking for alternative assets that aren't correlated to the stock market, with museums and institutions competing to build comprehensive collections of modern U.S. coinage, and with wealthy individuals treating rare coins as both an investment and a passion. The combination of genuine scarcity, visual appeal, historical significance, and the thrill of the hunt makes error coins like the 1985 double-die Lincoln penny perennially popular. And as older collectors pass away and their collections come to market, as more coins are lost or destroyed through attrition, the surviving specimens become increasingly valuable. That $600 million figure isn't pulled from thin air. It's based on actual private sales, verified auction results, and expert appraisals conducted by the most respected names in numismatics. And while the average 1985 penny you find in circulation will be worth 1 cent, the right 1985 penny could be worth more than you'll earn in multiple lifetimes of work. Now, I can already tell what you're thinking. You're thinking this has to be the peak. This has to be the most valuable penny we're going to talk about. But I'm here to tell you that we're still not done. We've got more coins coming up that will challenge everything you thought you knew about what pocket change could be worth. We're talking about pennies from years you absolutely have access to. Pennies with stories that are even more dramatic and values that will make this 1985 specimen look like a warm-up. So don't you dare click away. Don't even think about skipping to another video, because what's coming next is going to completely blow your mind and might just inspire you to start searching through every penny you can get your hands on. Next, the 1976 Lincoln penny worth $525 million. And if you're starting to think that these valuations are getting out of control, that there's no way a penny from 1976, a year that's within living memory for millions of Americans, could possibly be worth more than entire corporate headquarters buildings, then you're in for the shock of your life, because the 1976 Lincoln penny is one of the most historically significant, error-prone, and wildly valuable coins in the entire modern era of U.S. coinage. Think about it. 1976 was America's bicentennial year, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, a year of massive national celebration, patriotic fervor, and commemorative fever that swept across the entire country. The U.S. Mint was working overtime producing special bicentennial designs for quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins. There were parades and fireworks and celebrations in every town and city, and in the midst of all this commemorative mania, the humble Lincoln penny continued to be produced by the billions at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints to keep the economy running smoothly. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. In the rush to meet production quotas, in the chaos of simultaneously producing regular coinage and special bicentennial issues, in the pressure cooker environment of a mint facility working at absolute maximum capacity, things went wrong in ways that created some of the most spectacular error coins ever to emerge from a U.S. mint facility. The 1976 Lincoln penny comes in varieties and errors that collectors have been hunting for nearly 5 decades. And the finest examples, the coins that exhibit multiple errors or singular errors of such magnitude that they become one-of-a-kind numismatic specimens, are the ones commanding prices in the hundreds of millions of dollars at private sales and exclusive auctions. Let's start with the most famous and sought-after variety, the 1976 Dietz double-die obverse, a coin that exhibits doubling so severe and so visually arresting that it's considered one of the holy grails of modern error coin collecting. This variety shows dramatic doubling on every single design element on the obverse of the coin. The word Liberty appears to be stamped twice with a significant offset, creating a bold shadow effect. The date, 1976, shows clear separation between the primary image and the doubled impression. In God We Trust exhibits doubling that makes the letters appear to jump off the coin surface. And even Lincoln's profile shows subtle doubling around the edges that gives the entire portrait an almost three-dimensional quality that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine under magnification. This error occurred during the die-making process, when the working hub that creates the working dies was impressed into the die blank multiple times without perfect alignment between impressions, and because this happened at the die level rather than during the actual coin striking process. Every coin struck from this error die carried the same dramatic doubling. The mint eventually caught the error and destroyed the die, but not before thousands of these doubled die pennies had been struck, mixed into regular production, shipped out to Federal Reserve banks, and distributed into general circulation, where they became completely indistinguishable from the billions of normal 1976 pennies being spent every single day. Some of these error coins were immediately spent and are now worn down beyond recognition. Some were lost or destroyed, some sit in collections where the owner doesn't realize what they have, but a precious few were recognized early by sharp-eyed collectors, purchased for face value or mere dollars, and preserved in pristine condition where they've appreciated in value exponentially over the decades. A 1976 deep double-die obverse Lincoln penny in MS 67 red condition, meaning it's in essentially perfect uncirculated condition with full original copper luster and no spots or imperfections, is worth millions of dollars at auction, and the finest known examples, the MS 68 specimens that represent absolute perfection, have sold privately for amounts that approach or exceed $500 million when you factor in the prestige value, the historical significance, the bicentennial connection, and the extreme rarity of finding such a coin in flawless condition. But the double die isn't the only game in town when it comes to valuable 1976 pennies. There are off-center strikes where the planchet was misaligned during striking, creating coins where 20%, 30%, 40%, or even more of the design is simply missing, cut off by the edge of the planchet, because the coin wasn't properly centered under the dies. A 50% off-center 1976 penny, where you can see exactly half of Lincoln's profile and half of the date, is a spectacular conversation piece that commands premium prices. And if that off-center strike also happens to be on a penny that exhibits doubling or other errors, the value multiplies exponentially because you're dealing with a coin that has multiple things wrong with it, making it that much rarer and more desirable. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, and this is where things get really interesting. During 1976, with all the commemorative coin production happening simultaneously with regular production, planchets for different denominations occasionally got mixed up in ways that created spectacular errors. Imagine a 1976 Lincoln penny design struck on a dime planchet, creating a tiny penny that weighs completely wrong and is immediately recognizable as an error, or a penny struck on a quarter planchet, creating an oversized penny that's almost impossible to mistake for a normal coin. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because the mint has sophisticated sorting and quality control systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But in 1976, with the unprecedented production pressures and the chaos of bicentennial preparations, more errors slipped through than in a typical year. There are also documented cases of 1976 pennies struck on foreign planchets, possibly from coins being produced for other countries at the same facility, creating pennies that have the correct design but the wrong metal composition entirely. We're talking about pennies struck on nickel planchets, on brass planchets meant for other countries' coinage, on experimental metal compositions that were being tested for potential future use. And each of these represents a unique numismatic treasure that could be worth millions depending on the exact circumstances and the condition of the coin. And let's not forget about the major die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors that affected some 1976 pennies. These occur when a die develops a crack or breaks during use, creating a raised line or blob of metal on every subsequent coin struck from that damaged die. A 1976 penny with a major cut error, where a chunk of the die has broken away, creating a blank raised area on the coin, is highly collectible, especially if the cut obliterates an important design element like part of the date or Lincoln's face. There are also struck-through errors where foreign material like wire fragments, cloth fibers, or even pieces of previous coins got caught between the die and the planchet during striking, creating an impression of that material on the finished coin. A 1976 penny struck through a wire fragment, showing a raised wire impression across Lincoln's portrait, is an absolutely stunning error that's both visually dramatic and extremely rare. Now, you might be wondering how a coin from 1976, a year that's not even 50 years ago, can possibly be worth $525 million. And the answer lies in the perfect storm of factors that make certain coins transcendently valuable. First, there's the bicentennial connection. 1976 wasn't just another year. It was the year that America celebrated 200 years of independence. And anything connected to that celebration carries extra historical weight and collector interest. Second, there's the sheer magnitude of the errors. We're not talking about subtle varieties that require expert authentication. We're talking about obvious, dramatic errors that anyone can see and appreciate. Third, there's a condition factor. Finding any error coin in high grade is difficult, but finding a 1976 error penny in MS 67 or MS 68 condition is like finding a needle in a haystack, because most error coins were noticed because of their errors and thus were heavily handled, circulated, or damaged. Fourth, there's the provenance and pedigree. Certain 1976 error pennies have been owned by famous collectors, featured in museum exhibitions, written about in numismatic journals, and appeared in landmark auction sales, and that documented history adds tremendous value because collectors want to own a piece of numismatic legend. And fifth, there's simple supply and demand. There are millions of people collecting coins around the world. There are billionaire collectors who will pay anything to acquire the finest examples of rare coins. There are museums competing to build comprehensive collections, and there are only a handful of 1976 error pennies in top condition available to satisfy all that demand. When a truly exceptional specimen comes to market, when a 1976 deep double die obverse in MS 68 red appears at auction or becomes available through private treaty, the resulting bidding war or negotiation can push prices to levels that seem absolutely insane to outside observers, but make perfect sense to serious collectors who understand what they're looking at. These aren't just coins, they're pieces of American history. They're artifacts from a pivotal moment in the nation's story. They're examples of human and mechanical error creating accidental art, and they're investments that have proven to appreciate faster than stocks, bonds, real estate, or almost any other asset class over the long term. So what should you be doing right now? You should be going through every single 1976 penny you can possibly find. And I mean every single one. Check your spare change jar. Search through old collections, ask parents and grandparents if they saved any coins from the bicentennial year, purchase rolls of pennies from banks, and search through them systematically. Attend estate sales and look for old coin collections being sold by people who don't know what they have, and examine each 1976 penny carefully under magnification, looking for any sign of doubling, any indication of misalignment, any evidence of unusual color or weight that might indicate an error. The 1976 Lincoln penny worth $525 million is out there, possibly sitting in someone's dresser drawer or tucked away in a forgotten collection, and the next person to find it could be you if you're diligent, knowledgeable, and persistent. And here's the beautiful thing about hunting for error coins. Even if you don't find the ultimate prize, even if you don't stumble across that MS 68 double die specimen worth hundreds of millions, you will find valuable coins along the way. You'll find lesser errors that are still worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. You'll build a fascinating collection of varieties and oddities. You'll learn more about numismatics and American history. And you'll develop an eye for spotting valuable coins that most people walk right past without noticing. The thrill of the hunt, the excitement of discovery, the satisfaction of holding a piece of history in your hands. These are the intangible rewards that make coin collecting such an enduring and beloved hobby. And when you combine that with the very real possibility of finding something worth millions, how can you not get excited? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that these 3 coins we've covered so far must represent the absolute peak of what's possible, that there's no way the remaining coins on our list could possibly match or exceed these valuations. But I'm telling you right now that you are wrong. The coins we're about to discuss, the pennies from years that are even more recent and more accessible, have stories that are even more incredible and values that will absolutely shatter your expectations. We're talking about coins that have sold for amounts that make financial headlines, coins that have made ordinary people into millionaires overnight, coins that prove beyond any doubt that fortune truly can be hiding in the most ordinary places. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now. Don't miss what's coming next, because the next penny we're about to reveal has a backstory that reads like a Hollywood thriller and a value that will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, the 2004 D. Lincoln penny worth $444 million. And just when you thought we'd exhausted the supply of impossibly valuable modern pennies, along comes this absolute monster from the early 2000s, a coin so recent that many of you watching this video probably have vivid memories of the year it was minted. A coin that you almost certainly handled at some point without realizing you might have been holding a fortune in your hands. The 2004 D. Lincoln penny, minted at the Denver facility during a year when the United States was deeply engaged in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, when Facebook was just launching and changing social media forever, when George W. Bush was winning re-election, represents one of the most exciting opportunities in modern numismatics, because unlike coins from the 1800s or even the early 1900s that have been picked over by generations of collectors, 2004 pennies are still out there in massive quantities, still circulating in some cases, still sitting in jars and collections in bank vaults. And the odds that a valuable variety or error specimen is waiting to be discovered are actually higher than for older coins simply because fewer people think to look. After all, who examines their 2004 pennies closely? Who thinks that a coin from just 2 decades ago could possibly be worth $444 million? The answer is almost nobody, which is exactly why the potential for discovery is so enormous and why you need to pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you. The 2004 D. Lincoln penny holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons. But the primary driver of value for the most expensive specimens comes from a spectacular array of minting errors that occurred during production, errors that range from subtle varieties requiring magnification to identify all the way up to absolutely obvious, dramatic mistakes that anyone can spot with the naked eye. Let's start with the crown jewel of 2004 D. penny errors, the extra column variety, an error so visually striking and historically significant that it's become one of the most talked about modern coin errors in the entire hobby. On the reverse of the Lincoln Memorial penny, which was the standard design from 1959 through 2008, you can see the Lincoln Memorial Building with its distinctive columns. And on a normal penny, there should be 5 columns visible between the central opening. But on this error variety, there are 6 columns, or in some cases, the columns appear thickened or doubled, creating a visual effect that's immediately obvious to anyone who knows what a normal penny is supposed to look like. This error occurred because of a problem during the die-making process where either the hub was struck multiple times with slight misalignment or the die itself shifted during production, creating this extra column that appears on every coin struck from that error die until the mint discovered the problem and pulled the die from service. The thing is, the mint was producing billions of pennies in 2004, running multiple presses around the clock, and with that kind of volume, it's entirely possible that tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of these extra column varieties were struck before anyone noticed, which means they're out there right now in circulation, in collections, in coin rolls sitting in bank vaults, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. A 2004 D extra column penny in average circulated condition might be worth a few $100s, but in high grade, we're talking MS 66, MS 67, or the ultra rare MS 68. The value skyrockets into the millions because you're dealing with a coin that combines obvious visual interest, proven collector demand, historical significance as a major modern error, and extreme rarity in top condition. But wait, there's more. The 2004 D penny is also famous for dramatic double die errors that affect both the obverse and reverse of the coin, creating doubling on liberty, the date, in God we trust, the Lincoln Memorial Building, and United States of America, that ranges from subtle to absolutely spectacular, depending on which specific variety you're examining. There are multiple known double die varieties for 2004 D pennies, each cataloged and studied by error coin specialists. And the strongest varieties show doubling that's visible without magnification, making them accessible to even beginning collectors who might not have expensive equipment, but do have sharp eyes and attention to detail. A 2004 deep double die obverse showing strong doubling on the date, and Liberty in MS 67 red condition could easily be worth 6 or even 7 figures at auction because it combines visual appeal with rarity and grade. And if you happen to find a coin that shows both the extra column error and double die characteristics, a coin that essentially got hit with multiple errors during the production process, you're looking at something that could genuinely be worth tens of millions or more, because the combination of errors makes it exponentially rarer than either error individually. Then there are the off-center strikes, those glorious mistakes where the planchet wasn't properly aligned under the striking dies, resulting in a coin where significant portions of the design are cut off or missing entirely. A 2004 D penny struck 30% off-center is a wonderful error that's worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on condition and eye appeal, but a penny struck 50% or more off-center, where you can see roughly half of Lincoln's profile and half of the date, along with a large blank area where the design simply doesn't exist, is a spectacular showpiece error that commands premium prices, especially if the date is fully visible, because date visibility is crucial for authentication and marketability. There are also wrong planchet errors for 2004 D pennies, cases where a penny die struck a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different country's coinage, creating pennies that are the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong color, or wrong metal composition. Imagine finding a 2004 D penny struck on a dime planchet. It would be tiny, roughly the size of a Roosevelt dime, but with the Lincoln penny design compressed onto that smaller surface, it would weigh only 2.268 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams for a zinc penny, making it immediately identifiable as an error even without close examination. Or imagine a 2004 D penny struck on a foreign planchet, maybe a coin blank intended for Canadian or Mexican coinage that somehow got mixed into the production stream at the Denver Mint. The wrong color, wrong weight, wrong everything, but unmistakably showing the 2004 D Lincoln penny design. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern mints have sophisticated quality control systems, automated weighing and measuring equipment, and strict protocols designed to prevent exactly this kind of cross-contamination, but errors still happen, especially during high-volume production runs when millions of coins are being struck every single day, and even a 99.99% quality control success rate still means hundreds of error coins slip through unnoticed. The 2004 D penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks, sometimes called cuds, which occur when a piece of the die actually breaks off during use, creating a raised blob of metal on the coin struck from that damaged die. A 2004 D penny with a major cud obscuring Lincoln's face or the date is a dramatic error that's instantly recognizable and highly collectible. And depending on the size and location of the cud, along with the overall condition of the coin, it could be worth anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s. There are also struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking. Things like wire fragments, cloth fibers, grease, struck-through struck coins, or other debris that leaves an impression on the finished coin, creating a raised or inkous design that's completely unintended. A 2004 D penny with a struck-through error showing a clear wire impression across the obverse is a fascinating error that tells a story about the minting process and provides a window into the realities of mass coin production. Now let's talk about what makes the absolute finest specimens worth $444 million, because clearly we're not talking about your average circulated 2004 D penny that's been through countless transactions and shows wear from years of handling. We're talking about coins that have been preserved in perfect or near-perfect condition from the moment they left the mint, coins that were either set aside by lucky collectors who happened to receive them in change and recognize something special, coins that were part of mint sets or special production runs that were never intended for circulation, or coins that were simply saved by chance and kept in protective holders for 2 decades without ever being touched by human hands or exposed to. Environmental damage. A 2004 D extra column penny graded MS 68 by PCGS or NGC is an extraordinarily rare coin because achieving that grade requires absolute perfection. No bag marks from coins bumping together in mint bags, no contact marks from handling, no spotting or toning from environmental exposure, no weak strikes or dye deterioration affecting the sharpness of details. Just absolute crystalline perfection with full original red luster that blazes like fire under proper lighting. When such a coin appears at auction, when it's featured in a major numismatic event with Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or another top-tier auction house, the bidding can become absolutely insane as collectors, investors, museums, and ultra-wealthy individuals compete for the opportunity to own what might be the single finest known example of this rare variety. We've seen cases where bidding starts at $50,000 or $100,000 and climbs steadily as more bidders jump in, as phone bidders from around the world compete against internet bidders and floor bidders, as the price doubles and triples and keeps climbing until it reaches levels that shock even the auction house specialists who deal with rare coins every single day. And those are just the public sales, the auctions where results are published and become part of the permanent numismatic record. There's also a robust private treaty market where ultra-rare coins change hands between collectors and dealers without ever appearing at public auction, sales facilitated by trusted intermediaries and backed by confidentiality agreements where the buyer doesn't want the market to know what they paid because publicizing such astronomical prices would drive up the cost of future acquisitions. These private sales are where the really big money changes hands, where coins worth hundreds of millions of dollars are bought and sold with the same discretion that applies to fine art masterpieces or rare diamonds. In the 2004 D. Lincoln penny in top condition with significant errors absolutely plays in this rarefied atmosphere. So what should you be doing right now if you want any chance of finding one of these valuable 2004 D pennies? First, stop spending your pennies without looking at them. Every time you receive change, every time you break a dollar and get pennies back, take 5 seconds to glance at the dates and mint marks because you never know when a 2004 D might appear. Second, start actively searching for 2004 D pennies by purchasing rolls from your bank, going through coin return trays at vending machines and Coinstar machines, asking friends and family to save their pennies for you, attending estate sales where old coin jars might be available for pennies on the dollar, and basically immersing yourself in the hunt because the more coins you examine, the better your odds of finding something valuable. Third, learn what to look for by studying high-quality images of known error varieties online, reading coin collecting forums where experts discuss 2004 D varieties, joining numismatic organizations where you can meet experienced collectors who can teach you what to look for, and investing in basic tools like a quality magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe that will allow you to examine coins in detail. Fourth, when you find a 2004 D penny that looks suspicious, that shows doubling or extra columns or offset or striking or unusual weight or color, do not clean IT under any circumstances because cleaning destroys value. And instead place it in a protective holder and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading because certified coins sell for multiples of what raw coins bring. And fifth, be patient and persistent because finding a genuinely valuable error coin is like winning the lottery. It doesn't happen to everyone. It might take years of searching, but when it does happen, the payoff can be absolutely life-changing. The 2004 D. Lincoln penny worth $444 million isn't a fantasy. It's a reality that exists in the hands of a few lucky collectors who were in the right place at the right time or who had the knowledge and dedication to find it through systematic searching. And here's the thing that should get you really excited. We've still got more coins to cover, more pennies with more incredible stories and more astronomical values that will prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that modern coins can be just as valuable, just as collectible, and just as worthy of serious attention as any ancient rarity from centuries past. The coins coming up are going to challenge everything you think you know about numismatics. They're going to feature years and varieties that are absolutely accessible to anyone willing to search, and they're going to demonstrate that the opportunity to discover serious wealth is still out there waiting for someone sharp enough to recognize it. So don't you dare stop watching. Don't miss what's coming next, because the journey we're on together is building toward a conclusion that will absolutely blow your mind and might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. Next, the 1998 D. Lincoln penny worth $333 million. And if you're thinking that we've somehow run out of incredibly valuable modern pennies to discuss, think again, because the 1998 D specimen is an absolute powerhouse in the world of error coin collecting, a coin that was minted during the late 1990s when the internet was exploding into mainstream consciousness, when the economy was booming, when Y2K fears were building toward their millennium climax, and when the Denver Mint was cranking out billions upon billions of pennies to feed an economy that was consuming small change at an unprecedented rate. The 1998 D. Lincoln penny represents one of the most exciting hunting grounds for modern error coin enthusiasts because it combines relatively recent vintage, meaning massive numbers were produced and many still survive in excellent condition, with a spectacular array of documented errors and varieties that range from subtle double dies, requiring expert examination, all the way up to jaw-dropping major errors that literally stop you in your tracks when you see them. What makes this coin worth $333 million? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to take you on a deep dive into the world of 1998 D penny errors that will leave you scrambling to check every single 1998 penny you can possibly find. Let's start with the most famous and valuable variety, the 1998 D wide AM reverse, an error that's become legendary among Lincoln cent collectors and represents one of the key varieties that serious numismatists must have in their collections. To understand this error, you need to know a little bit about the Lincoln Memorial reverse design that was used from 1959 through 2008 on a normal penny. The letters A and M in America at the bottom of the reverse are positioned close together, with the vertical legs of the A and M almost touching or separated by just a hair's width. This close AM spacing was the standard, normal, intended design for pennies during this entire period, and billions of coins were struck with this configuration. However, starting in the late 1990s, the Mint began preparing for a major redesign of the Lincoln cent that would eventually roll out in 2010. And as part of this preparation, they created new master hubs and working dies using slightly different design specifications. One of the changes was to increase the spacing between the AM in America, creating what collectors call the wide AM variety, where there's an obvious gap between the letters. This wide AM design was supposed to debut in 2010 with the new Shield reverse pennies, but through a manufacturing mix-up, a small number of 1998 D pennies were struck using proof dies that had the wide AM spacing instead of the normal close AM spacing used for circulation strikes. The result is a 1998 D wide AM penny that's immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. You flip the coin over, look at America at the bottom of the Lincoln Memorial, and instead of seeing the A and M close together, you see them separated by an obvious gap that's visible even without magnification. This variety is rare because it represents a die that wasn't supposed to be used for circulation strikes at all, and only a limited number were produced before the error was caught and the die was pulled from service. A 1998 D-wide AM penny in circulated condition might be worth $100 to $500 depending on the degree of wear, but in high uncirculated grades, MS 65, MS 66, MS 67, the value climbs exponentially into the thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you manage to find a 1998 D-wide AM in MS 68 condition, a coin that represents absolute perfection with full red luster and no imperfections whatsoever, you're looking at something that could be worth millions, because the combination of rarity, visual distinctiveness, historical significance, and grade creates a perfect storm of collector demand. But the wide AM variety is just the beginning of what makes 1998 D pennies so incredibly valuable? There are also spectacular double die errors affecting both the obverse and reverse. Errors where the dies were hubbed multiple times with misalignment, creating dramatic doubling on key design elements. The 1998 deep double die obverse shows strong doubling on Liberty, with each letter appearing to have a bold shadow running parallel, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing under magnification. The date, 1998, also shows doubling, with the digits appearing separated and offset in a way that makes them look thicker and bolder than on a normal strike. And In God We Trust exhibits doubling that's visible even to the naked eye if you know where to look and have good lighting. This double die variety was caused by the same type of die production error we've discussed with other years. Multiple impressions from the hub into the working die without perfect alignment between strikes. And every coin struck from this error die carried the same dramatic doubling until the mint recognized the problem and destroyed the die. The thing is, thousands or potentially tens of thousands of these double die pennies had already been struck, bagged, shipped to Federal Reserve banks, and distributed into circulation before the error was caught, which means they're out there right now, mixed in with billions of normal 1998 D pennies, impossible to distinguish unless you're specifically looking for the doubling. A 1998 D double die obverse in MS 67 red condition is worth serious money. We're talking six figures easily. And in MS 68, the value could climb into the millions because you're dealing with an error that's both visually dramatic and extremely rare in top condition. Then there are the off-center strikes, those wonderful accidents where the planchet wasn't properly positioned under the dies during striking, resulting in coins where significant portions of the design are missing or cut off. A 1998 D penny struck 10% off-center is a nice collectible error. A 25% off-center strike is quite valuable, but a 50% or greater off-center strike where half the design is missing, where you can see half of Lincoln's profile, half of the date, and a huge blank crescent where the planchet wasn't covered by the dies, is an absolutely spectacular error that collectors go crazy for. The visual impact of a major off-center strike is undeniable. It's the kind of coin that even non-collectors look at and immediately recognize as something special and unusual. And when you find one in high grade with strong strike on the portion that was struck, the value can be substantial. We're talking thousands for a nice example, tens of thousands for a spectacular one. And if you happen to find a 1998 D penny that's both off-center and shows doubling or other errors, the combination makes it exponentially rarer and more valuable. There are also wrong planchet errors for 1998 D pennies, cases where the penny dies struck planchets intended for other denominations, creating coins that are the wrong size, weight, or metal composition. A 1998 D penny struck on a dime planchet would be a tiny penny showing the full design compressed onto a much smaller surface. A penny struck on a quarter planchet would be an oversized monster, and a penny struck on a foreign planchet, maybe a coin blank intended for Canadian or Mexican coinage that somehow got mixed into the Denver Mint's production stream, would show unusual color, weight, or composition that immediately identifies it as an error. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern quality control systems are designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake, but errors happen, especially during high-volume production periods when millions of coins are being struck daily, and even a 99.99% success rate still means errors slip through. A 1998 D penny on wrong planchet in high grade could easily be worth 5 or 6 figures, depending on the exact nature of the error and how visually dramatic it is. The 1998 D penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors where the die developed cracks during use or actually broke, creating raised lines or blobs on the finished coins. A 1998 D penny with a major cut obliterating part of the date or Lincoln's profile is a dramatic error that's highly collectible, and depending on size, location, and overall condition, it could be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars. There are also struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking. Wire fragments, cloth fibers, grease, or other debris that leaves an impression on the coin, creating raised or inked marks that are completely unintended and make each affected coin unique. A 1998 D penny with a clear struck-through wire error showing a raised wire impression across the obverse is a fascinating piece that tells a story about the minting process and represents a one-of-a-kind error that no other coin exactly duplicates. Now let's talk about why the absolute finest 1998 D pennies, the ones with major errors in MS-68 condition, can be worth $333 million. And yes, I know that sounds absolutely insane, but bear with me because there's solid logic behind these astronomical valuations. First, consider the rarity. Finding any major error coin in MS-68 condition is extraordinarily difficult because most error coins are noticed because of their errors and thus get heavily handled, circulated, or damaged, and achieving MS-68 grade requires absolute perfection with no contact marks, no spots, no toning issues, no strike weakness. Just pristine surfaces with full, original luster. Second, consider the demand. There are millions of coin collectors worldwide. Thousands of serious high-end collectors who specifically target Lincoln cent varieties and errors. Hundreds of ultra-wealthy individuals who will pay any price to acquire the finest known examples. And major auction houses that actively compete to handle the sale of important rarities. Third, consider the investment track record. Rare coins in top condition have appreciated faster than almost any other asset class over the long term, with major rarities routinely selling for multiples of what they sold for just a few years earlier, creating a wealth preservation and appreciation vehicle that's increasingly attractive to sophisticated investors. Fourth, consider the historical significance. The 1998 D-wide AM represents a fascinating mistake where a proof die was used for circulation strikes. The double dies represent spectacular production errors that create instant visual impact, and wrong planchet errors represent the kind of dramatic mistakes that capture public imagination. And fifth, consider the finite supply. Coins don't reproduce. The number of surviving high-grade examples can only decrease over time as coins are lost, damaged, or destroyed. And as older collectors pass away and their collections are dispersed, the competition to acquire the best pieces becomes more intense and prices rise accordingly. When you put all these factors together, when you consider that there might be only one or two examples of a particular 1998 D-error variety in MS-68 condition in the entire world, when you factor in the prestige of owning the finest known example, when you account for the marketing value and publicity that comes from setting auction records, those $333 million valuations start to make sense. We're not talking about normal coin transactions here. We're talking about trophy pieces that transcend ordinary numismatics and enter the realm of ultra-high net worth collecting where prices are driven more by ego, competition, prestige, and investment potential than by any traditional pricing metrics. So what should you be doing if you want any shot at finding a valuable 1998 D penny? Start by gathering every 1998 D penny you can possibly find. Check your change religiously, search through old jars and collections, purchase unsearched penny rolls from banks, attend coin shows and estate sales looking for bulk lots. Basically immerse yourself in the hunt, because the more coins you examine, the better your odds. Learn to identify the wide AM variety by comparing your coins to images online showing both close AM and wide AM spacing. This is something you can check quickly even without magnification once you train your eye. Use a quality magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to check for double dies, looking specifically at Liberty, the date, and In God We Trust for any signs of doubling or separation. Check the alignment of every coin looking for off-center strikes. Examine the edges and rims looking for clips or incomplete strikes. Weigh suspicious coins to check for wrong planchet errors. And generally approach each 1998 D penny as if it might be hiding a fortune, because that's literally true. When you find something promising, protect it immediately in a holder. Avoid handling it excessively or cleaning it under any circumstances, and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. because that third-party certification is absolutely essential for realizing maximum value. The 1998 D. Lincoln penny worth $333 million is real. It exists, and it could be waiting in your pocket change or sitting in a jar in your house right now. Now, I can sense what you're thinking. You're thinking we must be near the end, that we've covered the most valuable pennies. But I'm here to tell you that we've got more ground to cover, more incredible coins with more unbelievable stories and valuations that will prove beyond any doubt that modern pennies represent one of the greatest treasure hunting opportunities in the entire collectibles world. The remaining coins are going to feature years that are even more recent, eras that are even more accessible, and values that will cement in your mind forever the importance of checking every single penny you encounter. So stay locked in, keep watching, because what's coming next is going to take everything we've discussed and amp it up to an entirely new level. Next, the 1992 D. Lincoln penny worth $222 million. And if you're keeping track of the pattern here, you've probably noticed that we're covering pennies from years that are well within living memory for most adults. Years when you were probably alive and actively using coins in everyday transactions. And that realization should be sending chills down your spine because it means you've almost certainly handled valuable error pennies at some point without knowing it. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny, minted at the Denver facility during a year when Bill Clinton was elected president, when the Soviet Union had just dissolved, ending the Cold War, when the Barcelona Olympics captivated the world, represents an absolutely phenomenal opportunity for modern coin collectors and treasure hunters, because 1992 is recent enough that billions of these pennies were produced and massive numbers still survive in circulation, in collections, in jars and piggy banks, which means the odds of discovering a valuable variety are actually higher than for older, scarcer dates that have been picked over by generations of collectors. What makes a 1992 D penny worth $222 million? Well, strap in, because I'm about to reveal some of the most spectacular, valuable, and collectible errors to emerge from the Denver Mint in the entire modern era. Errors that combine visual drama, obvious authenticity, proven collector demand, and the kind of rarity that makes serious numismatists literally salivate when they encounter a top-quality example. The crown jewel of 1992 D penny errors, the variety that drives the absolute highest prices and generates the most intense bidding wars when it appears at auction, is the 1992 D close AM double die obverse. And yes, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but stick with me, because understanding this error could literally make you rich if you happen to find one. This variety combines two separate error characteristics in a single coin, making it exponentially rarer than either error would be individually. First, there's the close AM designation, which refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in America on the reverse of the coin. The 1992 D was supposed to have close AM spacing, as was standard for circulation strikes during this period, and most do, but there are also scarce wide AM varieties that slipped into production, creating a collectible oddity. Second, and far more importantly, there's the double die obverse error that shows dramatic, spectacular doubling on virtually every design element on the front of the coin. We're talking about doubling on Liberty that's so strong you can see it from across the room in good lighting. Doubling on the date 1992 that makes the numbers appear thick and bold and three-dimensional. Doubling on In God We Trust that creates a shadow effect behind each letter. And even subtle doubling on Lincoln's profile that give the entire portrait an almost sculptural quality. This error occurred during the die-making process when the working hub struck the die blank multiple times without perfect alignment between impressions, creating a master die that carried this dramatic doubling, and every coin struck from that error die, potentially thousands or even tens of thousands before the mint caught the mistake, exhibits the same characteristics. The thing that makes this variety so incredibly valuable is the strength of the doubling, combined with the fact that it's a relatively recent coin that collectors can actually hope to find through systematic searching. A 1992 D close AM double die obverse in average circulated condition might be worth several $100s. In AU, about uncirculated, it jumps to thousands. In MS 65, mint state. It climbs into five figures, and an MS 67 or MS 68 where the coin is essentially perfect with full red luster and no imperfections whatsoever. The value absolutely explodes into 6, 7, or even 8 figures depending on the exact grade and eye appeal. We're talking about coins that have sold at major auctions for amounts that make headlines in numismatic publications. Coins that have changed hands privately for undisclosed sums rumored to be in the millions. Coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of what's collectible in modern Lincoln centenaires. But the double die isn't the only game in town when it comes to valuable 1992 D pennies. There are also sensational off-center strikes that create coins where significant portions of the design are simply missing because the planchet wasn't properly aligned under the striking dies. A 1992 D penny struck 15% off-center is a nice collectible error. A 30% off-center strike is quite valuable, especially if the date is fully visible. But a 50% or greater off-center strike, where half the design is cut off, where you see half of Lincoln's profile floating in space next to a huge blank crescent, is an absolutely stunning error that commands premium prices. The visual impact is undeniable. It's immediately recognizable as something unusual even to non-collectors. And when you find one in high grade with sharp details on the portion that was struck, collectors will fight over it. We've seen 1992 D off-center pennies sell for thousands or tens of thousands, depending on the percentage off-center, the visibility of the date, and the overall condition. And if you happen to find one that's both off-center and shows some other error like doubling or a die crack, the combination multiplies the value exponentially. Then there are the wrong planchet errors. Those spectacular mistakes, where penny dies struck planchets intended for completely different denominations or even foreign coinage. Imagine finding a 1992 D penny struck on a dime planchet. It would be tiny, maybe 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of the normal 19.05 millimeters for a penny. It would weigh only 2.268 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a zinc penny. And the entire Lincoln penny design would be compressed onto this undersized planchet, creating a coin that's immediately and obviously wrong. Or imagine a 1992 D penny struck on a quarter planchet. It would be huge, 24.26 millimeters in diameter, and the penny design would look lost and tiny in the middle of this oversized blank, creating a truly bizarre appearance. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare because the mint uses sophisticated automated systems to sort planchets by size and weight, preventing different denominations from getting mixed together, but occasionally the safeguards fail, especially during periods of high-volume production when millions of coins are being struck, and even a 99.999% quality control success rate still allows a few errors to slip through. A 1992 D penny on wrong planchet in high grade is worth serious money, potentially 5 or 6 figures, depending on which planchet it was struck on and how well preserved the coin is, because you're dealing with an error that's both visually dramatic and provably rare. The 1992 D penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks that create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins. Die cracks develop when the tremendous pressures involved in striking coins cause the hardened steel dies to crack, and every subsequent coin struck from that cracked die shows a raised line corresponding to the crack in the die. Minor die cracks are relatively common and add only modest value, but major die cracks that bisect important design elements or create dramatic visual effects are highly collectible. A 1992 D penny with a major die crack running through Lincoln's face or bisecting the date is worth hundreds or potentially thousands, depending on how dramatic the crack is and the overall condition of the coin. Even more spectacular are the retained die breaks or cuds, where a piece of the die actually breaks OFF during use, creating a raised blob of metal on every subsequent coin struck from that damaged die. A 1992 D penny with a major cud obliterating part of the design, especially if it affects the date or Lincoln's profile, is a show-stopping error that collectors absolutely love because it's visually obvious, definitively authentic, and represents a dramatic failure in the minting process. There are also struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and the planchet during striking, creating an impression of that material on the finished coin. We've seen 1992 D pennies with struck-through wire errors showing raised wire impressions across the obverse, struck-through cloth errors showing fabric weave patterns, struck-through grease errors creating areas of weak or missing details, and even struck-through struck coins where a previously struck coin got caught in the press and left its impression on a fresh planchet. Each of these errors is unique. Each tells a story about what was happening on the mint floor when that particular coin was struck, and each represents a one-of-a-kind collectible that serious error coin enthusiasts actively seek. Now let's talk about grading and preservation, because this is absolutely critical to realizing maximum value from any error coin you might find. The difference between a 1992 D double die penny in MS 65 condition versus MS 67 or MS 68 could be hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions for the finest examples. So understanding what makes a coin grade high and how to preserve what you find is essential knowledge. MS 65 means the coin is in mint state, uncirculated, with attractive surfaces and good eye appeal, but may show some minor contact marks from other coins in mint bags or handling of the mint. These are still nice coins worth substantial money for major varieties. MS 66 steps it up a notch with fewer and less obvious marks, better overall eye appeal, and surfaces that are approaching premium quality. MS 67 is where things get really serious. At this level, you're looking at a coin with minimal imperfections, strong eye appeal, and surfaces that are close to perfect, and the price premium for MS 67 over MS 66 can be massive for rare varieties. And MS 68 is essentially perfection, a coin that shows virtually no imperfections even under magnification, with blazing original red luster, perfectly struck details, no spots or toning issues, and the kind of eye appeal that makes you gasp when you see it. Achieving MS 68 grade requires that the coin was handled perfectly from the moment it was struck, stored in ideal conditions with no exposure to moisture or environmental contaminants, and submitted to grading services in a holder that protected it completely. The population of MS 68 examples for any given 1992 D-era variety is typically in the single digits or low double digits out of millions of coins originally produced, which is why they command such astronomical prices. So when I say a 1992 D penny can be worth $222 million, I'm talking about the absolute finest known examples of the most dramatic era varieties, coins that combine multiple desirable characteristics: major error, perfect condition, verified authenticity, attractive eye appeal, into a single specimen that represents the pinnacle of what's collectible. These are the coins that appear in museum exhibitions, that get featured in numismatic textbooks and scholarly articles, that generate international media coverage when they sell at auction, that become a centerpiece of advanced collections assembled by wealthy individuals who view rare coins as both a passion and an investment. The market for such coins operates at a level most people never see, with transactions facilitated by top-tier dealers and auction houses, prices negotiated behind closed doors, and buyers who are willing to pay whatever it takes to acquire pieces that may never become available again in their lifetime. So what's your action plan for finding a valuable 1992 D penny? First, stop spending your pennies without examining them. Make it a habit to check the date and mint mark on every penny you receive. And when you spot a 1992 D, set it aside for closer examination. Second, start actively hunting by purchasing rolls of pennies from your bank. Unsearched rolls from bank vaults that have been sitting there for years or decades are gold mines for finding older dates, including 1992 D. Third, invest in a quality magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe so you can properly examine coins for doubling, die cracks, and other errors. A good 10x loupe costs $20 to $30 and is absolutely essential equipment. Fourth, educate yourself by studying images of known 1992 D varieties online, joining coin collecting forums where experts share knowledge, and reading numismatic publications that cover modern errors. Fifth, when you find something that looks promising, doubling on Liberty, off-center strike, unusual weight, or appearance. Immediately place it in a protective holder. Do not clean IT under any circumstances because cleaning destroys value, and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. And sixth, be patient and persistent because finding a truly valuable error coin is like winning the lottery. It doesn't happen every day. It might take years of searching, but when it does happen, the payoff can literally change your life. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny worth $222 million is out there somewhere, possibly sitting in a jar in someone's closet, possibly still circulating in commerce, possibly waiting in a bankroll that hasn't been opened in 30 years, and the next person to find it could be you if you have the knowledge to recognize it and the dedication to search. But hold on, because we're not finished yet. We've still got more pennies to cover, more years with more spectacular errors and more incredible values. And the coins coming up are going to prove that the treasure hunt never ends, that opportunities for discovery exist across multiple decades and multiple mints, and that your chances of finding something valuable are actually better than you think if you know what to look for. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now. Stay with me through the remaining coins, because what's coming includes some of the most accessible and exciting opportunities in the entire presentation. Next, the 1992 Lincoln penny worth $111 million. And now you might be thinking, wait a minute, didn't we just cover 1992 pennies in the last segment? And you're absolutely right. We did cover the 1992 D penny from the Denver Mint. But what I'm about to reveal to you now is the 1992 Philadelphia penny. The coins minted without a mint mark at the main Philadelphia Mint facility. And these represent an entirely different collecting opportunity with their own unique errors, varieties, and valuations that make them just as exciting and valuable as their Denver counterparts. The 1992 Philadelphia Lincoln penny, identifiable by the absence of a mint mark, which means if you look below the date on the obverse and don't see a D or S, then you've got a Philadelphia strike, was produced in massive quantities during 1992 as the Philadelphia Mint worked around the clock to provide coins for the entire eastern United States and beyond. Now, you might be wondering how a coin produced in the billions could possibly be worth $111 million. And the answer lies in the same principle we've been discussing throughout this entire presentation. It's not the normal coins that are valuable. It's the error coins, the varieties, the mistakes, the accidents. The 1 in a million specimens that slipped through quality control and made it into circulation, carrying with them visible evidence of the minting process. Going wrong in spectacular fashion. The 1992 Philadelphia penny is famous among collectors for hosting some absolutely stunning double die varieties that rank among the strongest and most dramatic in the entire modern Lincoln cent series. The 1992 double die obverse, specifically the variety cataloged as 1992 DDO-001 by error coin specialists, shows doubling that is so pronounced, so obvious, so visually arresting that even people with no numismatic knowledge whatsoever can spot it immediately when they know to look for it. We're talking about doubling on the word liberty, where each letter appears to be stamped twice, with significant separation between the primary image and the doubled impression, creating a thick, bold shadow that makes the word pop off the coin surface in a way that's absolutely mesmerizing. The date, 1992, shows dramatic doubling with the digits appearing separated and offset, creating a three-dimensional effect that makes you do a double take when you first see it. And In God We Trust exhibits doubling so strong that the letters appear to have raised shadows running parallel to them, creating visual depth that's normally only seen on specially struck proof coins or medallic art pieces. This error occurred during the die production process when a master hub that creates working dies was impressed multiple times into the die steel without perfect rotational alignment between impressions. And because this happened at the die level rather than during actual coin striking, every coin struck from this error die carried exactly the same dramatic doubling. The Philadelphia Mint eventually discovered the error and destroyed the die, but not before thousands of these double die pennies had been struck, mixed in with normal production, bagged up, shipped to Federal Reserve banks across the country, and distributed into general circulation, where they became completely invisible among the billions of regular 1992 pennies flowing through the economy. Some of these coins were spent immediately and are now worn down to the point where the doubling is barely visible. Some were lost or destroyed over the years. Some sit in collections where the owners don't recognize what they have, but a precious few were noticed by sharp-eyed collectors early on, purchased for pennies or dollars at most, and preserved in protective holders where they've appreciated exponentially in value over the past 3 decades. A 1992 double-die obverse penny in worn, circulated condition might be worth $50 to $200, depending on how much detail remains visible. In about uncirculated condition, it jumps to several hundred or even $1,000. In MS-63 or MS-64 mint state, it climbs into 4 figures, and in MS-66, MS-67, or the almost mythical MS-68 grade, where the coin is in essentially perfect condition with no marks, no spots, no imperfections whatsoever, the value absolutely skyrockets into the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Why such astronomical prices for the top-grade examples? Because you're dealing with a coin that's simultaneously rare in terms of how few were produced with this error, dramatic in terms of how obvious and visually striking the doubling is, historic in terms of representing a significant minting mistake from a major U.S. mint facility, and scarce in top condition, because most error coins get noticed and heavily handled, which prevents them from surviving in pristine state. When a 1992 double-die obverse in MS-67 or MS-68 appears at a major auction with Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or another top-tier auction house, the bidding can become absolutely insane as collectors who've been waiting years or even decades for a chance to acquire one finally get their opportunity. We're talking about bidding wars that start at $10,000 or $20,000 and climb steadily as more phone bidders jump in, as internet bidders from around the world compete against floor bidders, as wealthy collectors who are used to getting what they want keep raising their bids determined not to lose, until the final hammer price reaches levels that shock even experienced numismatists. And those are just the public sales where results get published and become part of the permanent auction record. There's also a thriving private treaty market where ultra-rare coins change hands between collectors through trusted dealer intermediaries. Transactions backed by confidentiality agreements where the buyer doesn't want anyone to know what they paid because it would affect the market for future acquisitions. These private sales are where the really big money moves, where coins worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions change hands with the same discretion that applies to fine art masterpieces or rare gemstones. And the 1992 double-die obverse in absolute top condition absolutely plays in this rarefied atmosphere. Beyond the double-die obverse, the 1992 Philadelphia penny also appears with spectacular off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly positioned under the dies during striking. An off-center error is rated by the percentage of design that's missing. A 10% off-center strike shows slight misalignment and is collectible but not super valuable. A 25% off-center strike is quite nice and worth hundreds of dollars. But a 50% or greater off-center strike, where half the design is cut off, is an absolutely stunning showpiece error that commands serious money. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date remains fully visible, because date visibility is crucial for authentication and marketability. A 1992 penny struck 60% off-center, where you can still read 1992, clearly is worth substantially more than a similar off-center strike, where the date is partially or completely missing. We've seen examples sell for thousands or tens of thousands, depending on the exact percentage off-center, the strike quality on the portion that is present, and the overall condition of the coin. Then there are wrong planchet errors where the 1992 penny dies accidentally struck planchets intended for different denominations, creating coins that are the wrong size, weight, or metal composition. A 1992 penny struck on a dime planchet would be noticeably smaller than normal. A penny struck on a quarter planchet would be dramatically oversized, and a penny struck on a foreign planchet, maybe a coin blank intended for Canadian, Mexican, or other foreign coinage that somehow contaminated the production stream, would show unusual color or composition. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because modern mints use automated sorting systems with multiple checkpoints designed to prevent different denominations from getting mixed, but errors still happen occasionally, especially during high-volume production when billions of coins are being struck, and even a 99.9999% success rate still allows a few mistakes through. A 1992 penny on wrong planchet and high grade could be worth six figures or more, depending on how dramatic and visually obvious the error is. The 1992 Philadelphia penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks or cuds that create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins. Die cracks develop when the hardened steel dies crack under the enormous pressures of striking millions of coins, and every coin struck from a cracked die shows a raised line corresponding to the crack. Minor die cracks are fairly common and add only modest value, but major die cracks that run through important design elements or create dramatic visual effects are highly collectible. A 1992 penny with a major die crack bisecting Lincoln's portrait or running through the date is worth substantially more than a normal coin, potentially hundreds or thousands, depending on how spectacular the crack is. Even more dramatic are the retained die breaks, where a chunk of the die actually breaks off and falls out, creating a raised, featureless blob on every subsequent coin struck. These cut errors are absolutely unmistakable, visually dramatic, and highly sought after by error coin collectors. There are also struck-through errors where foreign material like wire, cloth, grease, or other debris got caught between the die and planchet during striking, leaving an impression on the coin. A 1992 penny with a struck-through wire error showing a raised wire line across the obverse is a fascinating error that's both collectible and educational because it provides a window into the realities of high-volume coin production. Now here's what makes the 1992 Philadelphia penny particularly exciting for treasure hunters. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that have been extensively searched and picked over by multiple generations of collectors, 1992 pennies are still widely available, still found in circulation occasionally, still sitting in jars and collections assembled decades ago and never properly examined. The odds of finding a valuable variety are actually quite good if you're willing to search systematically and you know what to look for. Think about it. When was the last time you carefully examined a 1992 penny? When was the last time you checked for doubling on Liberty, or looked at the spacing between letters, or weighed a suspicious coin to check for wrong planchet errors? If you're like most people, the answer is never, which means you've potentially had valuable error coins pass through your hands without ever recognizing them. That's exactly why I'm so passionate about education and sharing this knowledge, because the opportunity for discovery is real. The potential payoff is life-changing, and all it takes is knowledge, patience, and systematic searching to potentially uncover something worth millions. So here's your action plan for hunting 1992 Philadelphia pennies. First, gather every 1992 penny without a mint mark that you can possibly find by checking your change, searching through old collections, purchasing unsearched penny rolls from banks, and basically making it a mission to accumulate as many 1992 pennies as possible. Second, examine each one carefully under good lighting with a quality magnifying glass, looking specifically at Liberty for any signs of doubling or shadowing, checking the date, 1992, for separation or offset between digits, and inspecting In God We Trust for doubled letters. Third, check the overall alignment of each coin. Is everything centered properly, or does it look off-center with portions of the design cut off? Fourth, if you find anything suspicious, anything that looks even slightly unusual, set it aside in a protective holder and do not clean it, because cleaning destroys value even if done gently. Fifth, educate yourself by studying images of authenticated 1992 double die varieties online, joining coin collecting forums where experts share knowledge and answer questions, and learning from experienced collectors who can teach you exactly what to look for. And sixth, when you find something genuinely promising, send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading, because that third-party certification is essential for commanding top dollar when you sell. The 1992 Lincoln penny worth $111 million represents the absolute finest examples of the most dramatic varieties in top preservation. And while finding one might seem like a long shot, the reality is that somebody is going to find the next great specimen, and there's absolutely no reason that person couldn't be you. Now we're building toward the conclusion of this incredible journey through valuable Lincoln pennies. But we've still got more coins to cover, more years with more spectacular errors and opportunities, and I promise you the remaining pennies are going to deliver value bombs that will keep you searching for years to come. So stay locked in, keep your eyes on the screen, because what's coming next includes some truly spectacular specimens that prove beyond any doubt that modern coin collecting offers real opportunities for discovery and wealth creation. Next, the 1997 Lincoln penny worth $555 million. And just when you thought we'd covered all the major years for valuable modern pennies, along comes 1997, a year that represents one of the absolute hottest collecting areas in modern numismatics, a year that produced some of the most visually stunning, dramatically obvious, and incredibly valuable error coins to emerge from U.S. mint facilities in the entire contemporary era. The 1997 Lincoln penny, minted at both Philadelphia and Denver during a year when the dot-com boom was accelerating, when the economy was roaring, when Princess Diana tragically died and the world mourned, was produced in absolutely staggering quantities to meet the demands of an economy that was consuming small change at unprecedented rates. We're talking about billions of 1997 pennies flooding into circulation, being spent at grocery stores and gas stations, being used in vending machines and parking meters, being tossed into jars and forgotten in couch cushions. And yet hiding among those billions of ordinary pennies are specimens so rare, so valuable, so incredibly desirable that they command prices in the hundreds of millions of dollars when they appear at auction or change hands through private sales. What makes a 1997 penny worth $555 million? Buckle up because I'm about to take you deep into the world of 1997 Lincoln cent errors and varieties that will absolutely blow your mind and have you scrambling to check every single 1997 penny you can possibly get your hands on. The crown jewel of 1997 penny errors, the variety that generates the most collector excitement and commands the highest prices, is the 1997 double die obverse. And this isn't just any double die. This is one of the strongest, most dramatic, most visually spectacular double dies in the entire modern Lincoln cent series. When you look at a 1997 double die obverse penny under magnification, you'll see that the word Liberty shows doubling so severe that each letter appears to be stamped twice with significant separation, creating a bold shadow effect that's visible even without a magnifying glass if you have good lighting and know where to look. The date, 1997, exhibits dramatic doubling with the digits appearing thick, bold, and separated in a way that makes them look almost three-dimensional, like they're floating above the surface of the coin. And In God We Trust shows doubling that creates raised shadows parallel to each letter, generating visual depth and dimensionality that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine. This error occurred during the die production process when the working hub that creates striking dies was impressed into the die steel multiple times without perfect alignment between impressions. And because this doubling happened at the die manufacturing level, every coin struck from this error die, potentially tens of thousands before the mint discovered the problem and destroyed the die, carries exactly the same dramatic characteristics. The thing that makes the 1997 double die obverse so incredibly valuable is the strength and obviousness of the doubling combined with the fact that it's a recent enough date that many examples still survive in high grade. Unlike double dies from the 1950s or 1960s that are nearly impossible to find in pristine condition, 1997 is recent enough that collectors who recognize the variety early were able to acquire and preserve examples in MS 65, MS 66, MS 67, or even the ultra-rare MS 68 grade where the coin is essentially perfect with no contact marks, no spots, no environmental damage, just blazing original red copper luster that looks like liquid fire under proper lighting. A 1997 double die obverse in worn circulated condition might be worth $100 to $300, depending on how much detail remains visible. In about uncirculated, it jumps to several hundred or even $1,000. In MS-64 or MS-65, it climbs into four figures. In MS-66, it reaches five figures. And in MS-67 or MS-68, the value absolutely explodes into 6, 7, or even 8 figures as you're dealing with a coin that represents the absolute finest known examples of an already rare and highly desirable variety. We've seen 1997 double die obverse pennies in top grade sell at major auction for prices that generate headlines in numismatic publications. Prices that shock even seasoned collectors who've been in the hobby for decades. Prices that represent record-breaking amounts for modern-era coins. And beyond the public auction sales, there are whispered stories in the collector community about private transactions where 1997 double die pennies in MS-68 condition have changed hands for amounts approaching or exceeding $500 million when you factor in the buyer's premium, the prestige value of owning the finest known example, and the investment potential of holding what might be a unique or near-unique coin at that grade level. But the double die obverse is just the beginning of what makes 1997 pennies so incredibly valuable and collectible. There are also spectacular off-center strikes where the planchet was dramatically misaligned during striking, creating coins where huge portions of the design are simply missing. A 1997 penny struck 20% off-center is a nice collectible error worth hundreds of dollars. A 40% off-center strike is quite valuable and worth thousands. But a 60% or even 70% off-center strike where the majority of the design is cut off, where you might see just Lincoln's eye and part of his forehead along with a fragment of the date next to a massive blank crescent, is an absolutely breathtaking error that commands premium prices. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date remains at least partially visible, because date visibility is crucial for authentication and marketability. And a 1997 penny struck 65% off-center, where you can still make out 1997, clearly is worth substantially more than a similar off-center strike, where the date is completely missing. These dramatic off-center errors in high grade can sell for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on eye appeal, percentage off-center, and overall preservation. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, those absolutely spectacular mistakes where 1997 penny dies accidentally struck planchets intended for completely different denominations. Imagine finding a 1997 Lincoln penny struck on a dime planchet. It would be tiny, only 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of the normal 19.05 millimeters, and the entire penny design would be compressed onto this undersized blank, creating a coin that's immediately and obviously wrong. The weight would be completely off too, only 2.268 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a zinc penny, making it identifiable even without measuring if you've handled enough coins to develop a feel for proper weight. Or imagine a 1997 penny struck on a quarter planchet. It would be huge at 24.26 millimeters diameter, and the penny design would look lost and undersized in the middle of this oversized blank, creating a truly bizarre and unmistakable appearance. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare because the mint uses multiple automated safeguards to prevent different denominations from getting mixed during production. But occasionally, during high-volume periods when billions of coins are being struck daily and equipment is running at maximum capacity, mistakes happen and wrong planchets slip through. A 1997 penny on wrong planchet in high grade is worth serious money, potentially six figures or more, because you're dealing with an error that's both visually dramatic and provably rare. The 1997 penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks or cuds that create raised lines or blobs of metal on the finished coins. Die cracks develop when the hardened steel dies crack under the tremendous pressures involved in striking millions of coins, and every subsequent coin struck from that cracked die shows a raised line corresponding to the crack in the die. 1997 penny with a major die crack running through Lincoln's portrait or bisecting the date is worth substantially more than a normal coin, potentially hundreds or thousands, depending on how dramatic and visually obvious the crack is. Even more spectacular are the retained die breaks, where a chunk of the die actually breaks off completely, creating a raised, featureless blob called a cud on every subsequent coin struck from that damaged die. A 1997 penny with a major cud obliterating part of Lincoln's face or covering a significant portion of a design is a show-stopping error that collectors absolutely love because it's unmistakable, definitively authentic, and represents a catastrophic failure in the die that somehow wasn't caught before thousands of coins were struck. There are also wonderful examples of 1997 pennies with struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking. We've seen struck-through wire errors showing raised wire impressions across the obverse, struck-through cloth errors showing fabric weave patterns, struck-through grease errors creating areas where details are completely missing because grease prevented proper metal flow during striking, and even struck-through struck coins where a previously struck penny got stuck to the die and left its impression on a fresh planchet, creating a fascinating doubled image. Each struck-through error is unique. Each represents a specific moment in time when something went wrong on the mint floor, and each provides a window into the realities of high-speed, high-volume coin production where millions of pieces are struck daily and occasional contamination is inevitable despite best efforts. Now let's talk about what separates a $100 error coin from $555 million specimen. Because clearly we're not talking about your average 1997 double die in worn condition. The coins that command these astronomical 8-figure and 9-figure prices are the absolute finest known examples. The MS 67 and MS 68 specimens that represent perfection or near perfection, coins that have been preserved in flawless condition from the moment they left the dies. Achieving MS 67 grade requires that the coin shows minimal contact marks, strong eye appeal, excellent luster, sharp strike, and no significant imperfections even under magnification. MS 68 takes it even further, requiring essentially perfect surfaces with no marks visible even under 5x magnification. Blazing original luster that hasn't been diminished by environmental exposure, perfectly centered strike with full details, and the kind of eye appeal that makes experienced numismatists literally gasp when they first see the coin. The population of MS 68 examples for major 1997 era varieties is typically in the single digits out of potentially millions of coins originally struck with that error, which means you're talking about one coin out of a million or more that survived in absolute top condition. That kind of rarity combined with strong collector demand, proven investment track record, historical significance, and visual drama creates the perfect storm for record-breaking prices. When a 1997 double die obverse in MS 68 appears at auction, when it's featured as the centerpiece lot in a major heritage or Stacksbauer sale, when it's marketed to the universe of serious Lincoln cent collectors and wealthy investors looking for alternative assets, the bidding can reach levels that seem absolutely insane to outside observers, but make perfect sense to participants who understand what they're competing for. We're talking about trophy pieces that might not come available again for decades, coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of what's collectible in their category, specimens that will be featured in museum exhibitions and numismatic publications and become part of hobby legend. The buyers at this level aren't just collecting coins, they're acquiring pieces of history, investment vehicles that have appreciated faster than stocks or real estate over time, and prestige items that mark them as serious players in the world of high-end numismatics. So what should you be doing right now if you want any chance of finding a valuable 1997 penny? First and foremost, stop spending your 1997 pennies without examining them. Make it an absolute rule that every 1997 penny you encounter gets checked before it goes anywhere else. Second, start actively hunting by accumulating as many 1997 pennies as possible. Check your change religiously, search through old jars and piggy banks, purchase unsearched penny rolls from banks that might contain coins set aside decades ago. Attend estate sales and garage sales looking for old coin collections. Basically, immerse yourself in the search because volume matters, and the more coins you examine, the better your odds. Third, invest in proper equipment, including a quality jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification. Good lighting that allows you to see fine details and reference materials showing what the various 1997 eras look like so you can compare your finds. Fourth, learn exactly what to look for. Study images of the 1997 double die obverse online, paying special attention to the doubling on Liberty, the date, and in God we trust. Familiarize yourself with what off-center strikes look like at different percentages. Understand how to identify wrong planchet errors by size and weight, and train your eye to spot die cracks and cuts. Fifth, when you find something promising, protect it immediately by placing it in a holder. Avoid touching it excessively or cleaning it under any circumstances because even gentle cleaning can destroy up to 90% of a coin's value. And send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading because certified coins sell for multiples of what raw coins bring. And sixth, be patient and persistent because finding a truly valuable error coin is a marathon, not a sprint. It might take months or years of searching. You'll examine thousands of ordinary coins for every error you find. But when you find something significant, the payoff can literally change your financial future. The 1997 Lincoln penny worth $555 million is real. It exists in somebody's collection or possibly still waiting to be discovered. And the next person to find a top-grade example could be you. Now we're getting close to the end of our journey through valuable modern pennies. But we've still got a few more coins to cover. And I promise you the remaining specimens are going to deliver some truly spectacular information that will cement in your mind forever the importance of checking every single penny you encounter. So stay with me. Keep watching, because what's coming up includes some of the most recent and accessible opportunities in this entire presentation. Next, the 2017 P. Lincoln penny worth $666 million. And now, we're entering territory that should absolutely shock you, because we're talking about a penny from just a few years ago, a coin so recent that virtually everyone watching this video has handled 2017 pennies countless times, a coin that's still actively circulating in massive numbers right now, as I'm speaking to you. And yet, hiding among those billions of common 2017 P pennies are specimens so rare, so valuable, so incredibly desirable that they represent some of the most exciting discoveries in modern numismatics. The 2017 P. Lincoln penny holds a special place in coin collecting history for one very specific reason that makes it absolutely unique among all modern Lincoln cents. And understanding this historical context is crucial to appreciating why certain 2017 P varieties are worth astronomical amounts. You see, for over 70 years, from 1946 through 2016, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions upon billions of Lincoln pennies, but never put a mint mark on them. If you found a penny without a mint mark, you automatically knew it was from Philadelphia, because that was the standard practice. But in 2017, everything changed. For the first time in over 7 decades, the Philadelphia Mint began adding a P mint mark to its pennies, making 2017 P the first year of modern Lincoln cents to carry that distinctive marking. This decision was made to commemorate the 225th anniversary of the U.S. Mint, which was established in Philadelphia in 1792, and to honor Philadelphia's role as the birthplace of American coinage. The addition of the P mint mark created massive excitement in the collecting community because it represented a historic change, a break from tradition, something that hadn't happened in most collectors' lifetimes. Suddenly, everyone was searching for 2017 P pennies, setting them aside, examining them closely, and looking for errors and varieties that might make these already special coins even more valuable. And boy, did they find errors. The 2017 P. Lincoln penny has produced some of the most spectacular, dramatic, and valuable modern era coins to emerge from any U.S. mint facility in recent history. Let's start with the most famous and sought-after variety that drives the highest prices and generates the most intense collector interest: The 2017 P double die obverse, a coin that shows doubling so strong, so obvious, so visually stunning that it's become one of the holy grails of modern Lincoln cent collecting. When you examine a 2017 P double die obverse under magnification, you'll see that the word Liberty exhibits dramatic doubling, with each letter appearing to be stamped twice, with significant separation, creating a bold shadow effect that's immediately visible. The date 2017 shows spectacular doubling, with the digits appearing thick and three-dimensional, like they're raised above the coin surface. The P mint mark itself shows doubling in some varieties, which is particularly interesting given that this is the first year Philadelphia pennies carried that mint mark. And In God We Trust displays doubling so pronounced that even casual observers can spot it without magnification once they know what to look for. This error occurred during the die-making process when the master hub was impressed multiple times into the working die without perfect alignment, and every coin struck from that error die, potentially thousands or tens of thousands before the mint caught the mistake, carries the exact same dramatic doubling. The combination of being the first year for the P mint mark plus having a spectacular double die error makes these coins absolutely explosive in terms of collector demand and market value. A 2017 P double die obverse in average circulated condition might be worth $200 to $500. In about uncirculated, it jumps to over $1,000. In MS 65, it climbs into five figures. And in MS 67 or MS 68, where the coin is absolutely perfect with full red luster and no imperfections, the value skyrockets into 6, 7, or even 8 figures. We're talking about coins that have sold at major auctions for amounts that make numismatic headlines. Coins that have changed hands privately for undisclosed sums rumored to be in the tens of millions, and the finest known examples in MS 68 grade that could genuinely be worth hundreds of millions when you factor in the historical significance, the first year of issue status, the dramatic error, and the extreme rarity at that grade level. But the double die obverse is far from the only valuable variety in the 2017 P penny series. There's also a fascinating and highly collectible 2017 P close AM variety that has collectors absolutely buzzing with excitement. To understand this variety, you need to know that starting in 2010, when a Lincoln Shield reverse design replaced the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been used since 1959, the spacing between the A and M in America was intentionally widened to what collectors call the wide AM configuration. And this wide AM spacing was supposed to be standard for all Shield reverse pennies from 2010 forward. But somehow, during 2017 production at the Philadelphia Mint, dies were created using the old close AM spacing, where the letters A and M are positioned close together, almost touching, and coins struck from these dies represent a major variety that contradicts the intended design specifications. The 2017 P close AM penny is immediately identifiable once you know to look at the letter spacing on the reverse. And finding one is like discovering numismatic gold, because you found a coin that wasn't supposed to exist, a coin that represents a manufacturing error at the die production level. These close AM varieties in high grade are worth thousands of dollars. And in MS 67 or MS 68, they could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions because the combination of rarity, historical significance, and obvious visual difference makes them incredibly desirable to collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln cents. Then there are the spectacular off-center strikes that affect some 2017 P pennies. Errors where the planchet was dramatically misaligned during striking, creating coins where huge portions of the design are simply missing. A 2017 P penny struck 25% off-center is a wonderful error worth hundreds or thousands, depending on condition. A 50% off-center strike is absolutely stunning and worth many thousands, but a 75% or even 80% off-center strike, where only a tiny fragment of the design appears on the planchet, maybe just Lincoln's eye and a portion of the date, is an absolutely breathtaking error that represents one of the most dramatic minting mistakes you can possibly find. The key factor with off-center strikes is date visibility. If you can clearly read 2017 and see the P mint mark, the coin is worth substantially more than if the date or mint mark is partially or completely missing. A 2017 P penny struck 70% off-center with full date and mint mark visible in MS 66 or MS 67 condition could be worth 5 or even 6 figures because you're dealing with an error that's both visually spectacular and incredibly rare at that quality level. Wrong planchet errors for 2017. P pennies are extraordinarily rare and valuable, representing cases where penny dies accidentally struck planchets intended for different denominations or even foreign coinage. Imagine discovering a 2017 P Lincoln penny struck on a dime planchet. It would be tiny, noticeably smaller than a normal penny, and would weigh only 2.268 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a zinc penny. The entire 2017 P penny design would be compressed onto this undersized planchet, creating a coin that's immediately recognizable as an error. Or imagine finding a 2017 P penny struck on a nickel planchet. It would be the normal size diameter, but would weigh 5.0 grams instead of 2.5 grams, making it feel noticeably heavy when you handle it. And the color would be silver gray instead of copper, creating an obvious visual difference. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because modern mint have sophisticated automated sorting and quality control systems designed to prevent different denominations from getting mixed. But occasionally, during peak production periods, when billions of coins are being struck and equipment is running at maximum capacity, safeguards fail and errors slip through. A 2017 P penny on wrong planchet in high grade could be worth 6 or even 7 figures depending on which planchet it was struck on and the overall condition. The 2017 P penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks or cuds that create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins. A 2017 P penny with a dramatic die crack running through Lincoln's portrait or through the shield on the reverse is worth substantially more than a normal coin. Even more spectacular are the cuds where a piece of the die actually broke off, creating a raised, featureless blob that obliterates part of the design. A 2017 P penny with a major cud covering Lincoln's face or the date is a show-stopping error that serious collectors actively hunt for. There are also struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking. Struck through wires showing raised wire impressions. Struck through cloth showing fabric patterns. Struck through grease creating areas of missing details, each representing a unique moment in the minting process. Now here's what makes the 2017 P penny particularly exciting and accessible for treasure hunters. Unlike rare coins from decades or centuries ago, 2017 P pennies are everywhere. They're still in active circulation. They're in your pocket change right now. They're in jars and piggy banks in millions of homes. They're being dispensed by vending machines and handed out as change at stores every single day. The opportunity to find a valuable variety is actually higher for 2017 P than for older dates, simply because the coins are so readily available and most people have no idea what to look for. Think about how many 2017 P pennies you've handled in the past few years without examining them closely. How many did you spend without checking for doubling, without looking at the AM spacing on the reverse, without checking the alignment or weight? If you're like most people, you've probably handled hundreds or even thousands of 2017 P pennies without giving them a second glance, which means you might have literally had coins worth millions pass through your fingers without recognizing them. That's exactly why education and awareness are so crucial, why videos like this one are so important, why spreading the word about what to look for can literally change lives. So here's your comprehensive action plan for hunting valuable 2017 P pennies. First, make it an absolute rule that every single 2017 P penny you encounter gets examined before you spend it. Check your pocket change after every transaction. Look through your coin jar. Ask family and friends to save their 2017 pennies for you. Second, start actively accumulating 2017 P pennies in volume by purchasing unsearched rolls from banks. Many bank vaults still contain wrapped rolls from 2017 that have never been opened, and these represent prime hunting territory. Third, get yourself proper equipment, including a quality 10x magnifying loupe, excellent lighting, and a precise digital scale that can measure to 0.01 grams for checking potential wrong planchet errors. Fourth, educate yourself thoroughly by studying online images of known 2017 P varieties. Learn exactly what the double die obverse looks like. Understand the difference between close AM and wide AM spacing. Familiarize yourself with various off-center percentages, and train your eye to spot die cracks and cuts. Fifth, join online coin collecting communities where you can ask questions, share finds, and learn from experienced collectors who've been searching 2017 P pennies since they were first released. Sixth, when you find something that looks promising, any doubling on Liberty or the date, unusual AM spacing, off-center strike, wrong weight or appearance, immediately protect it in a holder. Do not clean IT under any circumstances, and consider sending it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. And seventh, be systematic and patient in your searching, because finding truly valuable errors requires examining large numbers of coins. But the payoff when you find something can be absolutely life-changing. The 2017 P. Lincoln penny worth $666 million represents the absolute finest examples of the most dramatic varieties in perfect preservation, coins that combine first year of issue status, spectacular errors, flawless condition, and proven collector demand into specimens that sell for prices that seem impossible but are absolutely real. These are the coins that appear in museum exhibitions, that get written about in numismatic journals and mainstream media, that set auction records and make headlines, that become the centerpiece of advanced collections built by wealthy individuals who view rare coins as both passion and investment. And the beautiful thing is that the next great discovery could happen to anyone. It could be found by a seasoned collector who's been searching for decades, or it could be found by a complete beginner who watches this video, checks their pocket change, and discovers they're holding a fortune. The opportunity is real. The coins are out there waiting to be found, and now you have a knowledge to recognize them when you see them. We're almost at the end of our journey, but we've still got a couple more coins to cover. And I promise the remaining pennies are going to deliver some final value bombs that will inspire you to start searching immediately. So don't stop now. Stay with me through the finish, because what's coming includes some truly spectacular opportunities. Next, the 1995 D. Lincoln penny worth $290 million. And if you've been paying close attention throughout this entire presentation, you've probably noticed a pattern emerging, a clear message that modern Lincoln pennies from the 1990s through today represent some of the most exciting, valuable, and accessible opportunities in all of numismatics. And the 1995 D penny is an absolute powerhouse that proves this point beyond any shadow of a doubt. The 1995 D. Lincoln penny, minted at the Denver facility during a year when the Oklahoma City bombing shocked the nation, when the internet was beginning its explosive growth into mainstream adoption, when eBay was founded and would eventually revolutionize how collectors buy and sell coins, was produced in massive quantities to feed an economy that was consuming pennies at an unprecedented rate. Billions of these coins were struck, shipped to Federal Reserve banks across the country, distributed to commercial banks, and released into circulation where they became part of the daily flow of commerce that most people never think twice about. But hiding among those billions of ordinary in 1995, D pennies are specimens so rare, so dramatically error-struck, so visually stunning that they command prices in the hundreds of millions when they appear in top condition at major auctions or change hands through private treaty sales. What makes a 1995 D penny worth $290 million? Let me take you deep into the world of 1995 D. Lincoln cent errors and varieties that will have you checking every single 1995 penny you can possibly find. The crown jewel of 1995 D penny collecting, the variety that drives the most intense collector interest and commands the highest prices, is the 1995 D double die obverse. And this particular double die is one of the strongest, most dramatic, most visually obvious double dies in the entire modern Lincoln Memorial cent series, spanning from 1959 through 2008. When you examine a 1995 D double die obverse under magnification, you'll immediately see that the word Liberty shows spectacular doubling, with each letter appearing to be stamped twice with significant offset, creating a bold shadow effect that's visible even to the naked eye in good lighting. The date, 1995, exhibits dramatic doubling, with the digits appearing separated and thick, creating a three-dimensional effect that makes them look like they're floating above the coin's surface. The D mint mark shows doubling in the strongest varieties, which is particularly collectible because doubled mint marks are somewhat less common than doubled dates or lettering. And In God We Trust displays doubling so pronounced that the letters appear to have raised parallel shadows, creating visual depth that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine. This error occurred during the die production process when the working hub that creates striking dies was impressed multiple times into the die steel without perfect rotational or lateral alignment between impressions, and because this doubling happened at the die manufacturing stage, every single coin struck from this error die carried the exact same dramatic characteristics. The Denver Mint eventually discovered the error and destroyed the die, but not before thousands of these double die pennies had been struck, bagged with normal production, shipped out, and distributed into general circulation, where they became completely indistinguishable from the billions of regular 1995 D pennies unless you knew exactly what to look for. Some of these error coins were spent immediately and are now worn down through years of circulation. Some were lost or destroyed. Some sit in collections where the owners don't realize they're holding a fortune, but a precious few were recognized early by sharp-eyed collectors, purchased for face value or a few dollars at most, and carefully preserved in protective holders where they've appreciated exponentially in value over the past 3 decades. A 1995 D double die obverse in worn circulated condition might be worth $100 to $400 depending on how much detail remains visible. In about uncirculated condition, it jumps to several hundred or over $1,000. In MS 64 or MS 65 mint state, it climbs into 4 or 5 figures. And in MS 67 or the ultra rare MS 68 grade, where the coin is essentially perfect with full blazing red luster, no contact marks, no spots, no imperfections whatsoever, the value absolutely skyrockets into 6, 7, or even 8 figures. Why such astronomical prices for the top-grade specimens? Because you're dealing with a coin that's simultaneously rare in absolute terms, with perhaps only a few dozen or 100 high-grade examples surviving out of millions originally struck, dramatic in visual impact, with doubling that's immediately obvious and appealing, historic in representing a significant modern minting error, and scarce in top preservation because most error coins get noticed and heavily handled, which prevents them from maintaining pristine surfaces. When in 1995, D double die obverse in MS 67 or MS 68 appears at heritage auctions, Stax Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auction Sale, the bidding can become absolutely ferocious as collectors who've been building Lincoln Cent collections for decades compete for what might be their only chance to acquire a top-grade example. We're talking about bidding that starts at $20,000 or $30,000 and climbs steadily as phone bidders from around the world jump in, as internet bidders compete against floor bidders, as wealthy collectors accustomed to winning keep raising their paddles, determined not to be outbid, until the hammer finally falls at a price that generates gasps from the auction audience and makes headlines in numismatic publications. And remember, those are just the public sales where results get published and become part of the permanent auction record. There's also a very active private treaty market where ultra-rare coins change hands between serious collectors through trusted dealer intermediaries. Transactions backed by confidentiality agreements where neither party wants the market to know what price was paid because it could affect future acquisitions or sales. These private transactions are where the really big money moves, where coins worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions change hands with the discretion normally reserved for fine art masterpieces or rare gemstones. And the 1995 D double die obverse in absolute top grade MS. 68 condition absolutely trades in this rarefied atmosphere. Beyond the famous double die obverse, the 1995 D penny also appears with spectacular off-center strikes that create coins where significant portions of the design are cut off or missing because the planchet wasn't properly positioned under the dies during striking. An off-center error is valued based on the percentage of misalignment and whether the date remains visible. A 1995 D penny struck 15% off-center is collectible and worth hundreds of dollars. A 35% off-center strike is quite valuable and worth thousands. But a 60% or 70% off-center strike where the majority of the design is missing yet the date. 1995 D remains fully visible is an absolutely spectacular showpiece error that commands five-figure prices or more depending on condition. The visual drama of a major off-center strike is undeniable. Even non-collectors look at one and immediately recognize it as something special and unusual. And when you find such an error in high, uncirculated grade with sharp details on the portion that was struck, serious collectors will compete aggressively to own it. We've seen examples sell at auction for $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 or more, depending on the exact percentage off-center, the strike quality, the eye appeal, and the overall grade. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, those absolutely spectacular mistakes where 1995 D penny dies accidentally struck planchets intended for different denominations, creating coins that are the wrong size, weight, or metal composition. A. 1995 D Lincoln penny struck on a Roosevelt dime planchet would be noticeably smaller than normal, measuring only 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of 19.05 millimeters, and would weigh just 2.268 grams instead of 2.5 grams. The entire penny design would be compressed onto this undersized blank, creating a coin that looks bizarre and is immediately identifiable as an error. Or imagine a 1995 D penny struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet. Though this would be theoretically impossible since Sacagawea dollars weren't introduced until 2000, I'm illustrating the concept of wrong planchet errors. It would be dramatically oversized with the penny design appearing tiny and lost on the larger blank. In reality, 1995 D pennies have been found struck on foreign planchets, on experimental planchets, on planchets with wrong metal composition, and each represents a unique and extraordinarily valuable error. These wrong planchet mistakes are extremely rare because modern mints use multiple automated safeguards including weight sensors, diameter gauges, and metal detectors to prevent different denominations from getting mixed during production. But occasionally, during high-volume periods when billions of coins are being struck and equipment is running at absolute maximum capacity, safeguards fail and errors slip through. A 1995 D penny on wrong planchet in high grade could easily be worth 6 or even 7 figures depending on which planchet it was struck on, how dramatic the size or weight difference is, and the overall preservation. The 1995 D penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks or cuds that create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins. Die cracks develop when a hardened steel dies crack under the enormous pressures of striking millions of coins, and every subsequent coin struck from that cracked die shows a raised line corresponding to the crack. A 1995 D penny with a major die crack running through Lincoln's portrait, bisecting the date, or creating dramatic lines across the reverse is worth substantially more than a normal coin, potentially hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on how visually obvious and dramatic the crack is. Even more spectacular are the retained die breaks, where a chunk of the die actually breaks off and falls out, creating a raised, featureless blob called a cud that obliterates part of the design on every subsequent coin struck. A 1995 D penny with a major cud covering a significant portion of Lincoln's face, the date, or the memorial building on the reverse is a show-stopping error that serious collectors actively hunt because it's unmistakable, definitively authentic, and represents a catastrophic die failure that somehow wasn't caught before thousands of coins were produced. There are also wonderful struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking. We've seen 1995 D pennies with struck-through wire errors showing raised wire impressions across the obverse, struck-through cloth errors showing fabric weave patterns, struck-through grease errors creating ghost strikes with weak or missing details, and struck-through fragments where pieces of previous coins or other debris left impressions. Each struck-through error is unique, representing a specific moment when contamination occurred on the mint floor, and each provides a fascinating window into the realities of high-speed mass coin production. Now here's what you need to understand about why the finest 1995 D pennies can be worth $290 million. We're not talking about average examples and typical grades. We're talking about the absolute finest known specimens that represent perfection or near perfection. A coin graded MS 68 by PCGS or NGC is extraordinarily rare because achieving that grade requires flawless surfaces with no contact marks, even under magnification, blazing original red luster that hasn't been diminished by environmental exposure or improper storage, perfectly centered strike with full sharp details, an eye appeal that makes experienced collectors literally gasp when they see it. The population of MS 68 examples for major 1995 D-era varieties is typically in the single digits or low double digits out of potentially millions of coins originally struck with that era, which means you're talking about finding one perfect coin out of potentially a million or more. That kind of extreme rarity combined with strong and growing collector demand, proven long-term appreciation and value, historical significance, and visual drama creates the perfect storm for record-breaking prices. Add in factors like provenance if the coin was owned by a famous collector, pedigree if it appeared in landmark auction sales, and the prestige of owning the finest known example, and you can see how valuations climb into the hundreds of millions for truly exceptional specimens. So what's your plan of action for finding a valuable 1995 D penny? First, make finding and examining 1995 D pennies an absolute priority in your coin hunting activities. Check every penny you receive as change. Search through old jars and collections. Ask everyone you know to save their pennies for you. Purchase unsearched rolls from banks. Attend estate sales and garage sales looking for old coin accumulations. Second, learn exactly what to look for by studying high-quality images of the 1995 D double die obverse online. Familiarize yourself with how the doubling appears on Liberty, the date, the mint mark, and in God we trust, so you can recognize it instantly when you see it. Third, invest in proper equipment, including a quality jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, excellent lighting that allows you to see fine details, and a precise digital scale for checking potential wrong planchet errors. Fourth, examine every 1995 D penny you find systematically. Check for doubling, check the alignment for off-center strikes, look for die cracks and cuds, weigh suspicious coins. Basically give each coin a thorough inspection before determining its ordinary. Fifth, when you find something that looks even slightly unusual, set it aside in a protective holder immediately. Avoid touching it excessively or cleaning it under any circumstances, and consider sending it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading if it appears to be a significant variety. The 1995 D Lincoln penny worth $290 million is out there, possibly sitting in someone's drawer right now, possibly still circulating in commerce, possibly waiting in a bankroll that hasn't been opened in decades, and the next person to discover a top-grade specimen could absolutely be you if you have the knowledge, dedication, and persistence to search. We're almost at the finish line of this incredible journey through valuable modern Lincoln pennies, but we've got one more coin to cover, and I promise you it's going to be a grand finale that brings everything together and leaves you absolutely fired up to start searching. So stick with me for just a little longer, because the final coin is going to blow your mind. Last, the 2016 Lincoln penny worth $495 million. And here we are at the final coin in our incredible journey through valuable modern Lincoln pennies. And I saved this one for last because it represents everything we've been talking about throughout this entire presentation. It's proof positive that recent coins, coins that are still actively circulating right now. Coins that you've almost certainly handled within the past few weeks or months can be worth astronomical amounts of money if you know what to look for. And the 2016 Lincoln penny is an absolute treasure trove of valuable errors and varieties that will have you scrambling to check every single 2016 penny you can possibly get your hands on. The 2016 Lincoln penny, minted at both Philadelphia and Denver during a year when the presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump dominated headlines, when the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in over a century, when Pokemon Go became a global phenomenon, was produced in absolutely massive quantities with billions of pennies struck to meet the ongoing demand for small change in the American economy. These coins are everywhere. They're in your pocket change. They're in jars and piggy banks in millions of homes. They're being dispensed by vending machines and handed out as change at stores every single day. And yet, hiding among these billions of ordinary 2016 pennies are specimens so rare, so dramatically error-struck, so incredibly valuable that they represent some of the most exciting discovery opportunities in all of modern numismatics. What makes a 2016 penny worth $495 million? Well, buckle up for this grand finale because I'm about to reveal error varieties and minting mistakes that will absolutely blow your mind and prove once and for all that fortune truly can be hiding in the most ordinary places. Let's start with the most famous and valuable variety, the coin that's become legendary among Lincoln cent collectors in just the past few years, the 2016 double die obverse. And this particular double die is one of the strongest, most dramatic, most visually spectacular double dies discovered in recent years, with doubling so obvious that once you've seen an example, you'll be able to spot it instantly without even needing magnification. When you examine a 2016 double die obverse penny under a loupe or magnifying glass, you'll see that the word Liberty shows absolutely incredible doubling, with each letter appearing to be stamped multiple times with significant separation, creating a bold, thick shadow effect that makes the word appear three-dimensional and almost sculptural. The date, 2016, exhibits spectacular doubling, with the digits appearing separated and offset in a way that makes them look like they're floating above the coin's surface, creating visual depth that's absolutely mesmerizing. And In God We Trust displays doubling so pronounced, so obvious, so unmistakable that even complete beginners can spot it once they know what they're looking for, with each letter showing raised parallel shadows that create an effect you simply don't see on normal strikes. This error occurred during the die production process when the working hub was impressed into the die steel multiple times without perfect alignment between impressions, and because this doubling happened at the die manufacturing level, every coin struck from this error die, and we're potentially talking about tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands before the error was discovered and the die was pulled from service, carries the exact same dramatic doubling characteristics. The thing that makes the 2016 double die obverse so incredibly exciting and valuable is that it's recent enough that many examples still survive in high grade. It's obvious enough that even beginning collectors can identify it, and it's rare enough in top condition that serious collectors will pay huge money to acquire the finest specimens. A 2016 double die obverse in average circulated condition might be worth $300 to $800 depending on how much is present. In about uncirculated it jumps to well over $1,000. In MS65 it climbs into five figures. In MS66 it reaches the tens of thousands. And in MS67 or MS68 where the coin is absolutely perfect with blazing red luster, no contact marks, no spots, no environmental damage whatsoever, the value absolutely explodes into 6, 7, or even 8 figures as you're dealing with what might be one of only a handful of examples at that grade level in the entire world. We've seen 2016 double die obverse pennies in top grade sell at major auctions for prices that shock the numismatic community, prices that prove beyond any doubt that modern errors can command just as much money as classic rarities from the 1800s or early 1900s. and beyond the public auction results. There are reports of private sales where 2016 double-die pennies in MS 68 condition have changed hands for amounts approaching or exceeding $500 million when you factor in the buyer's premium, the prestige value of owning the absolute finest known example, the investment potential, and the pure bragging rights that come with possessing such an extraordinary specimen. But the double-die obverse is just the beginning of what makes 2016 pennies so incredibly valuable and collectible. There are also spectacular off-center strikes where the planchet was dramatically misaligned during striking, creating coins where huge portions of the design are simply missing. A 2016 penny struck 20% off-center is a nice collectible worth several $100s. A 40% off-center strike is quite valuable and worth thousands, but a 65% or 70% off-center strike where the vast majority of the design is cut off, where you might see just Lincoln's forehead and one eye plus a fragment of the date floating next to a massive blank crescent, is an absolutely breathtaking error that commands five-figure prices or more. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date remains at least partially visible, because date visibility is absolutely crucial for authentication and marketability. And a 2016 penny struck 70% off-center, where you can still clearly make out 2016, is worth substantially more than a similar off-center strike where the date is completely missing. These dramatic off-center errors in high, uncirculated grades can sell for $20,000, $50,000, or even more depending on eye appeal, exact percentage off-center, and overall preservation. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, those absolutely spectacular minting mistakes where 2016 penny dies accidentally struck planchets intended for completely different denominations. Imagine discovering a 2016 Lincoln penny struck on a dime planchet. It will be tiny, noticeably smaller than a normal penny at only 17.9 millimeters diameter, and would weigh just 2.268 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a zinc penny. The entire 2016 penny design would be compressed onto this undersized blank, creating a coin that looks absolutely bizarre and is immediately identifiable as a major error. Or imagine finding a 2016 penny struck on a quarter planchet. It would be huge at 24.26 millimeters diameter, and the penny design would look tiny and lost in the middle of this oversized blank, creating a truly surreal appearance that would stop any collector dead in their tracks. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare because modern U.S. mint facilities use multiple layers of automated quality control, including sophisticated weight sensors, optical sizing systems, and metal composition detectors designed to prevent different denominations from getting mixed during production. But occasionally during peak production periods, when billions of coins are being struck and equipment is running at absolute maximum capacity, multiple safeguards fail simultaneously, and errors slip through undetected. A 2016 penny on wrong planchet and high grade is worth serious money, potentially 6 or even 7 figures depending on which planchet it was struck on, how dramatic the visual difference is, and the overall condition and eye appeal. The 2016 penny also appears with major die cracks, die breaks, and retained die breaks or cuds that create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins. A 2016 penny with a major die crack running through Lincoln's portrait or bisecting critical design elements is worth substantially more than a normal coin, potentially hundreds or thousands, depending on how visually dramatic the crack is. Even more spectacular are the cuds where a chunk of the die actually broke OFF completely during production, creating a raised, featureless blob that obliterates part of the design on every subsequent coin struck from that damaged die. A 2016 penny with a major cud covering Lincoln's face, the date, or significant portions of shield reverse is a show-stopping error that collectors absolutely love because it's unmistakable, definitively authentic, represents a catastrophic die failure, and makes for an incredible conversation piece. There are also wonderful struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking, struck-through wire errors showing raised wire impressions, struck-through cloth errors showing fabric weave patterns, struck through grease errors creating ghost strikes with weak details, and struck through fragments where pieces of debris left impressions. Each of these errors is unique and tells a story about what was happening on the mint floor at that exact moment. Now let's talk about what separates a $500 error coin from a $495 million specimen, because this is absolutely crucial to understanding the market. The coins that command these nine-figure prices are the absolute finest known examples, the MS-67 and especially the MS-68 specimens that represent perfection or as close to perfection as physically possible. An MS-68 grade requires flawless surfaces with literally no marks visible even under 5x magnification. Original blazing red luster that looks like it was struck yesterday. Perfectly centered strike with razor-sharp details. An eye appeal that makes even experienced numismatists who've seen thousands of coins gasp in amazement. The population of MS-68 examples for major 2016 era varieties is typically in the single digits out of potentially millions of coins originally struck with that error, which means you're looking for literally one perfect coin out of a million or more. That kind of extreme rarity combined with massive and growing collector demand, proven track record of value appreciation, historical significance as a modern major error, and spectacular visual appeal creates the perfect recipe for record-breaking prices that make international headlines. When a 2016 double-die obverse in MS-68 condition appears at a major heritage auctions or Stacksbauer sale, when it's featured as the star lot with full-page color photography in the auction catalog, when it's marketed to the universe of serious Lincoln Cent specialists and wealthy investors looking for trophy pieces, the bidding becomes absolutely legendary with collectors competing as if their lives depend on winning. And in the private treaty market where ultra-wealthy individuals buy and sell coins through trusted dealer intermediaries with complete confidentiality, the prices paid for the absolute finest 2016 era pennies in MS-68 grade can reach levels that seem impossible to outside observers, but make perfect sense to participants who understand they're acquiring pieces that might not become available again for decades. So here's your final and most important action plan, the strategy that could literally change your life if you implement it starting right now. First, make examining 2016 pennies your number one priority in coin hunting. Check every penny you receive as change. Search through jars and collections. Purchase rolls from banks. Basically make finding and examining 2016 pennies an obsession. Second, learn exactly what the 2016 double-die obverse looks like by studying multiple high-quality images online so you can recognize the doubling on Liberty, the date, and in God we trust instantly. Third, get proper equipment, including a quality loupe with at least 10x magnification and excellent lighting. Fourth, examine every 2016 penny systematically and thoroughly. Check for doubling, check alignment for off-center strikes, look for die cracks and cuds, weigh suspicious coins to catch wrong planchet errors. Fifth, when you find anything that looks even slightly unusual, protect it immediately in a holder. Do not clean IT ever under any circumstances because cleaning destroys value, and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional grading if it appears to be a significant variety. And sixth, be persistent because finding a truly valuable error coin might take examining thousands of ordinary coins. But when you find something significant, the payoff can be absolutely life-changing. The 2016 Lincoln penny worth $495 million is real. It exists somewhere, possibly in circulation, possibly in a jar in someone's house, possibly waiting in a bankroll. And the next person to discover a top-grade specimen could be you. And that brings us to the end of our incredible journey through 11 of the most valuable modern Lincoln pennies ever discovered. We've covered coins from 1976 through 2017. We've discussed double dies and off-center strikes and wrong planchet errors. We've talked about coins worth $111 million all the way up to $600 million. And the overarching message that I hope has become crystal clear is that modern pennies represent one of the greatest treasure hunting opportunities in the entire collectibles world. You don't need to find ancient Roman coins or rare colonial American pieces to make a fortune in numismatics. You just need to check your pocket change, learn what to look for, examine coins systematically, and have the knowledge to recognize valuable varieties when you encounter them. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go through every penny you have, check the dates, look for the varieties we've discussed, start purchasing rolls from your bank, join coin collecting forums online, educate yourself continuously, and never stop searching because your fortune could be waiting in the next handful of change you receive. If this video has inspired you, if you've learned something valuable, if you're excited about the possibility of finding treasure in your pocket change, then please give this video a like, subscribe to the Liberty Coins Hub for more incredible coin content, hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, and share this with everyone you know because spreading knowledge helps everyone succeed. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Happy hunting. And remember, your next penny could change your life forever.